Today's guest turned $20,000 into over $80 million using TikTok comments.
We can watch the world unfold in real time simply by reading comments.
How many comments have you read on TikTok?
8 or 9 years worth, 4 hours a night, each night, thousands.
With no background in traditional finance, he's managed to outperform top Wall Street investors with his own strategy, social arbitrage.
I got to spend quality time with the most senior people on Wall Street for 5 years straight. And I walked away realizing, oh my gosh, there's almost nothing behind the curtain.
While analysts were buried in spreadsheets and earning reports, he was understanding culture, studying thousands of comments on TikTok to predict the rise of Crocs, the GameStop short, and even viral slime toys.
When Uggs came out a few years ago with the Ugg Minis, I knew that was a breakout moment. And it's because I've been monitoring Ugg comments every single September and October for 15 years.
In this episode, we'll dive into his strategy for turning attention into dollars, explore the unique methods he's used to generate outsized returns, and unveil his biggest prediction yet, which he believes will change humanity forever.
I still feel like my biggest trades are probably ahead of me because of what AI is going to do. OpenAI and Meta and Apple and Amazon, obviously Tesla, are all developing humanoids.
Who would you bet on? Chris Camillo. Welcome to the Jack Neel Podcast.
Good to see you again, Jack. It's been a while.
It's been a while. Chris and I have known each other for a few years, actually, and I've seen him kind of making his rounds on some popular podcasts I watched. And I'm like, wow, like I really had no idea what this guy's been up to since we were last connected. It's pretty interesting. I think he'd be a great guest. So I maybe emailed you about a week ago, and you're like, I'll let you know next time I'm in Los Angeles. And a couple days later, you're here. So yeah, excited to chat, man. So I guess just generally, how did you turn 20K into $80 million?
So, the thing that I call social arb, a simpler way to say that is observational investing, right? It's essentially learning how to observe the world keenly in real time, right? Learning how to detect change as it's actually happening in front of us. It could be change in consumer behavior, culture, technology, politics, geographic change. I mean, it could be a change in anything. You just have to surface the change and connect the dots of that change back to investable opportunities in the world quicker than others. That's it. That's the entire methodology of what I do.
I understand. You don't see it as predicting. You see it as this is going to happen because it is happening, and all things lead to it happening in the future, I guess.
It's just seeing what's already happening in the world. So okay. The reason why people sometimes think of it as predicting is because they don't see it. But you can see it if you just remove the noise. So I'll just give you a random example. This is going to really age me here. I moved to Texas when I was 13 from New York. And most of Wall Street at the time was still in the Northeast. I was just a kid. But living in Texas, I would see things that Wall Street just didn't see. Because I was investing since age 13. I was a money nerd before that was a cool thing to be. Now it's like, grinding crypto and all this stuff. Like all the kids do it now. Almost zero kids did that when I was a kid, except for me. But there were restaurants like P.F. Chang's. P.F. Chang's is in many ways the first time that anyone outside of the coast had ever had Chinese food. And if you were working on Wall Street and you see this random restaurant, P.F. Chang's, you're like, oh, it's junky food. Like, no way, right? You're in Dallas, Texas in, I don't know when it was, mid-90s, and you see a 3-hour wait of people eating Chinese food for the first time in their life, and you realize that this is going to become a thing in every single city in the country outside of where you can get good Chinese food, which is like 3 cities at the time, right? Maybe 4. Something that simple, right? that was actually happening. So just being in a PF Chang's and just seeing the energy, seeing the excitement level of these normie people in the middle of the country, and it's not hard to extrapolate that that concept would be replicated over and over and over and over again. So it sounds so simple, right? Like that's not difficult, but that's something that institutional investors had a really hard time doing because they're biased. They're geographically biased. They're biased based on their wealth. They're biased based on their age and other factors. So, you know, one thing that you hear a lot when it comes to my, like what I do is, oh, you know, people say, oh, invest in what you know. It's like, no, don't invest in what you know, right? Like you got to expand your horizon well beyond what you know, because what you know is biased. It can be positively biased. It can be negatively biased. But it's really important to get away from what you know, and really immerse yourself in the culture of the world that exists outside of your little sphere, whatever that is. And I think that's probably the primary, advantage that I've had over the course of my life, is that I was not afraid to like get into this world, no matter what it is, like to actually view things for what they are, to like listen in on the world's conversations, to like actively observe other people, to actively observe things that I disagree with or don't understand, and actually see them accelerate, to see them blow up, and then connect the dots and make investments based on what I'm observing. Because I don't have that sense of bias. And also because I've never really been a professional, like I'm not like a professional investor, I never really had, you know, this framework that I had to stay within. You know, I can do what I want. I wasn't beholden to having to apply fundamental investment methodologies or technical investment methodologies. I can just do something totally different. And I wasn't investing other people's money. I was always just been investing my own money, so I can take a different road, a different path. And it just happens to be where it worked out. And still to this day, I'm stunned. Like when you made that introduction, every time someone says that, it quite honestly sounds like a fraud to me. Like if I had ever heard someone saying that they achieved that, I'd be like, BS. Right. You know, like I had initially turned 20,000 into $2 million, which was 100 times my money, between 2007 and 2010. And at the time, I was being tracked by a portfolio service called Covestor, which was the first service that would actually track your investor accounts and like show who in the world was performing the best within their portfolio. And I connected my brokerage account to it. So there's a lot of places that do this now. And I had become the number one ranked person on that portfolio ranking thing, right, during that 3-year period. And I got a book deal and I wrote a book. And it was like, the whole time I was writing a book, I was like, am I a fraud? Because I only have 3 years of track record. And I knew that statistically, that could be an anomaly. And so am I making this up in my head, this whole methodology that I think I have called social arb, observational investing? There was a piece of me that always thought maybe I was actually a fraud and just got lucky. Yeah. And I was like, if I can just do this for 2 more years, like 5 years is strong. And then I got to 5 years, I was like, not enough. I gotta do it for 10. And sure enough, like I did it at 10 years. And then I felt pretty comfortable, but I was like, I want to do more. So then I got to 15, and now I'm on year, I think 17 of my audit. So I get audited every year. And I believe I'm at roughly 70% annualized returns average over the past 17 years. And I'm actually amazingly, I think, having the best, second best year of my career this year, of my investment career. So now I want to hit 20 years.
Wow.
And that, I think after I hit 20 years, I'm going to like not stress as much about like wanting to prove that I can do this for, for a sustained period of time. 20 years is a lot. Like that's a long time to sustain a track record. But I do want to make it to 20. And it's something in the back of my head. I'm like, I need to do this. I need to prove that I can do this consistently. And it's not just an anomaly.
Yeah, it's not just luck. I've met a lot of people my age who think they're stock gurus or whatever because they get 100% returns or 200% returns like over the course of a year or just on one trade. Or I meet a lot of people who are like, Jack, I think the stock market is like our opportunity. And I've been more open to the idea now after watching some of your content and diving deep recently that it is a good opportunity. But I used to tell them, I'm like, no, I know this guy, Chris, who got 70% or 76% annualized returns for this many years. And I haven't met anyone else who has that. I'm sure there's a small group. How many people do you think have as good of a retail or individual investor track record as you do?
So a few years ago, I actually tweeted out that I was going to pay like, I don't know, $100,000 to anyone that could prove to me that they had outperformed my track record. And it was over like just 1 year, like just my prior year.
Just 1 year.
Just 1 year. And the reason why I did that was not because like I wanted to flaunt that I was the best investor, because I genuinely wanted to find other people that were doing great things. And I had a ton of submissions and a bunch of them were fraudulent. As you can imagine, people trying to like trick. There was a gentleman though, who was submitted to me who that year had generated, I think like 150 million of returns that year, right? It was wild. And
was that mostly one big trade, or was that a series of good trades?
No, it was this individual was hyper focused for years on electric vehicles and the entire supply chain and everything associated with it. And this was like pandemic years, right? Like when everything was flying. And so he won. And so he was such an interesting individual that he had me donate. He didn't like, he won one of the contests, but not both of them. I think the one he won was $10,000. He had me donate it to the guy that told him about the contest, who was in financial trouble. He was really nice. And I did that. And I went ahead and, wired the $10,000 to that individual. Now, what was really interesting is that Jack Schwager on No Market Wizards, which is the book that I was in a few years ago about the top performing, retail traders in the world. And Jack spent years researching traders around the world for that book. This individual just randomly happened to be one of the other 5 equity traders that Jack had found. So here's what's fascinating about that. There was no intersection between my little competition and this multi-year project that Jack Schwager had done to identify. So, because Jack audits all of his investors, like massively audits them. I know this because he did it with me, and like he has to get in your brokerage account, and he does weekly audits going back 15, 16 years. The fact that the person that I found that won my competition was also one of the 5 traders in his book kind of showed me that there's probably not that many out there that are real, that have performed that way over a long period of time. So in fact, I haven't spoken to this individual in a few years, but I know that he must have had a hard time when the EVs all got crushed. Now, I don't know how his strategy changed. But I don't think there's that many that have done it for like over 10 years. I think there are a ton of investors that have had massive 1 to 3 year runs because of the way that the market has worked the last 5-6 years.
Let me ask you this, Chris, just for the skeptics out there and the contrarians, of those returns, like the 70% average over 17, are there any extreme outlier years such as like a 4,000% year that bumped up all those years, or is it pretty consistently like 70%?
No, it's pretty consistently, I think like 35 or 40% at minimum. And then some years are 100 or 150, right? The year of the pandemic was huge for me. I called COVID, so I became upset. I'm really obsessive about black swan events. Like that's for an investor like me, for an observational investor, a black swan event's a Super Bowl, right? Like, unfortunately, some black swan events, I would say more often than not, are not pleasant events for humanity. So I hate that part of it. But as an investor, what you're really looking for are those things that happen once every 10 or so years. If you can just catch one of those in your life, you'll be a top 1% investor statistically over the course of your entire life. And when I saw the COVID coming out of China, I was doing all this language translation on all these scientist and doctor reports that I was finding in China. And I realized how real it was. I went all in on the pandemic and shorting the market, and then going ultra long the market, of course, on all the things that would benefit from a pandemic scenario where we're all living in our houses and can't leave, which is what I assumed was going to happen, which is what happened.
What was the first thing you bought?
I had a group of it's like 7 to 12 stocks that range from really obvious stocks like Shopify, Amazon, and Peloton, to some niche companies like Schwinn Bicycles and, RV, type stocks and four-wheelers and boats and you just have to go through the motion of envisioning what life is going to be like. What are people doing now? Remember when I said that you're trying to surface change? Well, this is the biggest change in 100 years of how people live. So imagine that, for the first time in our lifetime, we're radically changing what we do every day as humans, what we buy, how we spend our time, where we spend our time, how we work, what we do for pleasure. We're not traveling. Instead, we're doing lakes and things that are pandemic safe, right? We're riding bicycles. And so you just have to go through the motions of deep thought and, just assessing how are we living different as it's happening. And what's so crazy, Jack, is that the amount of time you had to do this work, you had weeks and weeks and weeks to do this work, and these stocks were not moving, so it's you had all this time. And I was so I knew the stocks I wanted to buy that obviously were only benefiting from the pandemic, but they just got thrown out like the baby with the bathwater, right? And I was at some point the market's going to settle, and these are the stocks to go in. And roughly 2 days after the market hit bottom, because you can never really time a bottom perfectly. I mean, it could have been 3 or 4 days after the bottom, but I got lucky and I hit it 2 days after the bottom. I took all the gains that I had made from shorting the market and I put them into levered long positions in those stocks. And it was wild, as exactly what you would imagine it to be. So I made 6 times my portfolio. It was 600% return, I think. But then I talk about this somewhat. It's a little embarrassing, but I got caught up in NFTs. As just a hobby. I'm one of these people where I just get zoned in on things. And I got pulled into a text group of really fun, interesting people, and they became my new friends. And we had never met in person, but they were extraordinarily successful people in their own domain around the world. And we would just text 24 hours a day about NFTs, and we're having fun. I became 12 years old again, like playing with baseball cards, but it was NFTs. And it was like becoming like an investment. I was like tricked myself into thinking that this is like a legitimate investment thesis. And it's not that I lost money in NFTs, because I oddly didn't. I was able to like get out of them in time, but I was so distracted. By the way, distraction is something we should talk a lot about today. But I became really distracted and missed out on what became, even more opportunity as the market started to kind of unravel after that. So I lost a lot of that money. I think, made like 600%, and then probably lost a third of it.
So you were deep into NFTs.
I was very deep into NFTs.
How many CryptoPunks did you have?
I had, so there was that famous Zoom with like, Logan Paul, my buddy, Bobby Hundreds, and a few other friends were on that Zoom where Gary V kind of shared with these guys, and he
Mr.
was
Beast as well.
Mr. Beast was there, yeah, and so I was not on that Zoom, but I had people on the Zoom that were part of my text thread that I just mentioned, and so they got us all pumped on CryptoPunks that evening, and it took me like 4 or 5 days to figure out how to get my money so where I can buy these things. And I bought one. It was actually a funny article about me and Logan Paul buying a CryptoPunk, which I don't know. I didn't know Logan Paul at the time, but it was like, hey, these two totally different influential people bought CryptoPunk. Oh, no, that was Bored Ape. Actually, I take it back. That was Bored Ape, which I also bought at the time. I got deep, really deep. There were some projects where I was like the largest owner.
I had some flower girls.
I had everything.
Yeah.
It's honestly still to this day, my buddies make fun of me because like I went all in on Cool Cats. And, we used to talk about how, the derivative monetization of Cool Cats was going to be this game that they were making where milk was the currency, and then people would make, my buddies, Dave and Jordan, still make fun of me, my YouTube partners, are you milking your cats today for the milk? I'm like, I can't believe how deep I got into that. It was psychotic, honestly. Like, so this text group, to this day, we talk about it, about like, we all lost our mind because like we're all professionals. We're all exceptionally like successful in our own career domains. And like, we all did this. And some of us are like CEOs, and like, what were we thinking? It was part of the pandemic, that psychotic element of the pandemic where you don't leave your house for a year and a half and like the world is changing and but you know what? I would do it all again because of the fun I had. And, I think that's like a big part of the difference between me and a lot of the other people in my world who have like hit a degree of success. Like at a certain point I stopped and I put a large amount of emphasis on joy. And like, so if you ask me, like, if you could do that whole thing again, would you? Like, yeah, I would have lost all the same amount of money. I would not give up that text thread for anything. Those friendships I have today because of the NFT boom. And no, like that is more valuable to me than the amount of money that I missed out on because I was distracted.
It was really interesting at the time of NFTs. I think it was maybe the key part in culture where our digital life mattered more than our physical one. And what I'm curious of is with COVID and predicting or realizing what was happening, how big it was going to be, did you kind of understand as well that that shift was going to happen where we permanently cared more about our digital life than our physical life?
Yes. Which is, I still think today that the concept of an NFT at some point in our future will become increasingly interesting and important as an asset class, at least as it relates to art. It's inevitable, right? It's absolutely inevitable that the digital side of us will become more and more important over time. And like, even when you think about connections and authentic relationships, there are so many, like if you go to the younger generation right now, like Gen A, their digital relationships are so real. The people that you might, like, I had friends in camp when I was growing up. I don't even know their names now. I don't think I ever heard from them ever again after camp. My kids who are 15, they will be lifelong friends with the people that they hang out with 2 weeks a year in summer camp, because they digitally connect with them after camp and they're speaking to them like constantly. And they have hundreds of legitimately authentic relationships with people that they've come into contact with, maybe for a moment in time. But then some number of those people, they increasingly develop a relationship that's only digital. Maybe at some point in their life, it'll become physical as well. Maybe they end up reconnecting it because they're in the same college or the same city when in their 20s, or maybe they end up working in the same industry at some point later in their life. But the only stuff that these people see about each other is what's reflected in their digital presence on the internet.
This is a bit off topic, but it makes me think of your perspective on this. A lot of people claim that we have this loneliness epidemic because we exist online and we only connect with people online. It's not in person. It's not real human connection. But I would venture to say it's more of a overstimulated epidemic that can lead to different types of depression. Which would you kind of categorize it as?
I don't know that I can relate to the loneliness thesis, because my almost purely digital relationships are some of my strongest right now. And quite honestly, the digital relationships I have, like the text threads with people I virtually never see that were started on text, right, provide immense joy to my daily life. Immense. In fact, as a content creator, having a community of like-minded, observational investors, social arb investors, right, in the dumb money community, the active members of that community that I kind of regularly engage with, there is such a sense of relatability that I have to them that I really had never found in my life until I became a content creator, because I was never able to relate to other types of investors. I'm not a fundamental investor. I'm not a professional investor. I'm not one of these tech traders. I don't look at charts. I don't do any of that stuff. And I go to conferences with these people, nice people. I just don't relate to them at all. But since I started talking about the way I invest on YouTube years ago, and now there's just this growing community of people that embrace it, those are my people. Now, they're an extension of myself. And when I do run into one of these people on vacation and they see me on the street, occasionally, I'll have coffee with them, or just, I love it, So I don't know, man. I think the digital stuff is the opposite, because you find your niches, right? You find, how hard that is. It used to be to find someone that that was relatable to you. Unless you fit, I told you, I moved when I was in 8th grade from New York to Texas, and in Texas, to some extent, it's so predominantly if you're a young guy in Texas and you're not into college football, you're whoa, you feel like an alien sometimes.
I'm from a small town in Kentucky. I was one of 2 guys to not play football for my high school in the entire class.
So you get it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's weird, but like now you can find your people easily. And I think have really authentic relationships. So I think it actually aids the loneliness. I honestly think it. So I think the epidemic you're referring to is misunderstood, and it's being caused by something else. I think to some extent, and this has been widely discussed, there's a dopamine epidemic, right? I don't think we fully understand that. I don't think we fully understand how that is impacting our mental health. I think there is an information overload epidemic. What I mean by that is we have access to too much information, especially when it comes to relationships. I think the red pill stuff, right? And the opposite, which is like female, talking about red flags and like how terrible men are. And like a lot of that stuff is actually true on both sides, but we used to be really naive to it. Right? We used to just kind of like slowly learn that over the course of our life. And because we became slowly frustrated with each of those things. But along the way, we had families and we were happy. And you have like a nice balance of like the good stuff and the bad stuff. Now all the bad stuff is front loaded with too much. I mean, kids now are so smart in so many ways because of all that intelligence and information they have access to through the algorithm. Listen, when you're watching video 5 hours a day, even if 4 hours of it are junk entertainment, the 1 hour of educational stuff you get is going to make you 100x more informed than anyone from my generation. And a lot of that is good, but some of it's bad.
The algorithm's almost designed to stress you out.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it has to, for a video to do well, it has to emotionally trigger someone. Yeah. And that's why we see like the incentives are disaligned for creators to make kind of fear-mongering content. But there's also a lot of really good positive stuff out there and just a lot of junk in general.
I picked up my daughter from summer camp this last weekend. And at camp, they're not allowed to use phones. And what's so wild is you would think that they're just dying to get on their phone after 2 weeks. They don't even want to be, like, they're depressed to get on their phone. She's like, I wish that I can live in a world where that phone didn't even exist. She's like, the best 2 weeks of the year are at camp with no phones, no social media. They're just doing things all day, looking at each other. She's like, the cabin conversations that are happening face to face with all the girls in the cabin, like taking that stress and that comparison out of their life for a couple weeks. It's wild to see that how quickly they embrace not having that when it's an option. It's obviously not an option in the real world. Right? Once you get out of camp, for the most part, for most people, and we get hooked.
Chris, I want to step back for a minute. You had mentioned these different communities, finding your own community, aiding with connection, and that's been super beneficial to you. I'm curious of the kind of communities that you've dived into for some of your alpha, because I'm guessing you've been in some really strange places on the internet, whether it's Facebook groups filled with moms or like doctor discussion forums or patient discussion forums if they're taking certain medications that are novel and they're testing them. I want to hear about some of those communities that you found.
Yeah, this is what's so freaking amazing about the way that I invest is that the way that I surface alpha or, novel information, the way that I'm able to detect change in the world as it's happening requires that I'm reading all of the world's communications in real time. And what I mean by that is like every demographic of person, no matter where they are in the world, no matter what color their skin is, whether they're wealthy or poor, it doesn't matter if they're Republican, Democrat, or something in between, what their sexual orientation is. I need to get in their head. I need to know what their desire is this day, this week, what they're buying, what their interest is, how they're spending their time. I need to know what's exciting them. I need to know what's upsetting them. And I do this roughly 4 hours a night. Late night is when I do most of my social research, and almost all of it, not all of it, but almost all of it is comments on TikTok. And so I can't just rely on the algorithm, what it's delivering me. I have to like dive deep into the search on TikTok and actually go to places that I, as a person, ordinarily would never see and never go to. And I love it so much because it's like you're mining for gold and you don't know what you're going to find that night. And most of the time you find nothing that's going to, result in making an investment. But damn, is it entertaining? Like, cause you're seeing things that your group, your demographic is just not privy to, that they're not seeing. I'm in conversation, I'm looking at comments of, women talking about apparel and makeup, and like just talking, people that are doing the most obscure things, but it just shows you how fragmented and rich like the culture has become in this world. Everybody's in their niches, and they're all, quite honestly, like a lot of people are having a blast with it. Like I know we like to like orient ourselves towards the negative of this world right now, but there are a lot of people having fun out there. A lot of people engaging, talking, doing things. The culture is shifting really quickly. Like it's no longer where like, what's the trend this year? It's like, what's happened this week, and how long will it last?
What have you noticed this week? What did you pick up on? What did you observe?
It's, I'll talk about one of like my latest investments this last year that I've been tracking. It's a weird one. Came out of China. Everybody kind of knows about it now. But it's, the Labubu craze at Pop Mart. It was like a cultural moment that surfaced out of China during the pandemic because people, when they're stuck in their homes, they like to collect things, and to some extent you can't even be around pets and stuff, if you're in China. So but you want a pet. So this little thing maybe becomes like a pet to you, right? Like that sort of mentality. And of course, Labubu, what are these little figurine things, right? Have become widely popular around the world and started trending in the US this last year. And it's one of my investments, and the company trades out of the Hong Kong exchange, Pop Mart, owns Labubu, and they have stores around the world and vending machines that people wait outside of every time they have a new release. But the company's tripled in value over the last year, and it's a $40 billion company, right? So think about that. Like it's grown from like 13 billion to 40 billion in the last year.
How many products would you guess they have?
They have a lot of products, but like the main driver of interest are like Labubu, and they have one called Monsters, and they have like 2 or 3 that are trending really hard. But they all kind of look, just for someone like me or you, they all kind of look the same, honestly. But what I was going to say this week that I found was this this girl did a TikTok talking about, I think she was like a witch, and she was laughing at the fact that I guess she's claiming that the history of the Labubu design that company took actually had a dark element to it, right? That was satanic. And she's like, this is wild. All these people around the world buying these things, putting them on their purses, not realizing that they're cursing themselves when they do it. So these are really like interesting things to pick up on. Now, does it mean I sell my Pop Mart stock? Not necessarily. But does it mean I pay attention to it now to see if other people start commenting on this video and making other videos talking about how they're satanic? And could that be the topping point, like that where people start shying away from this trend? I don't know yet, but now it's on my radar. And I'll be watching it. And another example of that was Celsius, the drink, right? I was very early on buying Celsius stock because I was able to surface that trend really early, made an incredible amount of money on it.
We did the marketing for them.
You
our
did?
Company.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Well, I don't know if you recall, but there was a single video that came out on TikTok that went viral of a guy who claimed that it had like arsenic in it. Right? Because he broke out the ingredients. What actually happened was he misunderstood the ingredient as active arsenic. And it's not, right? Obviously it's not. They wouldn't be selling this all around the world and in the US. But that video went so viral. I still believe to this day, it was that one video that resulted in numerous other videos, and to my account had hundreds of millions of views that got Celsius in trouble and stagnated their growth, especially in the US.
The same thing happened with Prime. You might have seen, or you might have saw that
Yes.
people were saying that Prime had cyanide in it.
Yes.
And that's actually, I talked about this with some friends, and a big reason we don't drink Prime is because we just saw a video about it having cyanide in it. And it's like, okay, well, I don't need to buy it because it might have cyanide in it. It's like, there's no reason to research it. That's just kind of consumer behavior. I think Bang Energy also had something.
Bang had something that actually did ultimately work. That worked against them really badly. But I think that misinformation is what ultimately crushed Celsius. Now, Celsius is trying to rebuild, as is Prime. And I'm no longer invested, so I don't really keep track of it. But I need to be aware of everything as it's happening in close to real time. If there's new information in the world that is surfacing that could result in a product or a brand becoming more or less in demand, then I need to know about that. And that's the entirety of my research process, is trying to surface change and connect dots as quickly as I can. So it's 7 nights a week, 4 hours a night.
That's a lot of TikTok brain rot.
Well, and listen, it used to not be TikTok. It used to be, if you go back pre-social media, I was doing this in malls, at stores, like visually seeing lines at restaurants like P.F. Chang's or Cheesecake Factory. That was tough. And then it became Facebook. And then Instagram, but a lot of it was on Twitter in the early 2000 teens, when people used to actually express themselves on Twitter, what they were doing, what they were interested in, what they were buying. Then Twitter became nothing but news and politics and technology and finance. So there are some niches of Twitter where people still express themselves, some demographics, but for the most part, Twitter is no longer effective as a place to surface change.
Is TikTok mainly what you look at? Is it like 90% TikTok, 10% Instagram and Reddit? Or what would you say?
It's been like 90% TikTok for many, many, many years. Like as far back, almost to the start, like shortly after when TikTok became TikTok. As you recall, in the earliest days, it was still mostly dancing and doing stuff like that. But then as soon as it became more than that, those comments are gold. It's so fascinating because like all communication, not all, like a lot of communication enough is digital. So we can watch the world unfold in real time simply by reading comments. That's it. Like that's the only place you need to go. You don't need to go anywhere else. Wall Street hedge funds spend tens of millions of dollars on data to try to get an edge. And as a regular retail investor, we could front run Wall Street if we're willing to try to decipher conversational data in comments. Wall Street hates it. They hate it because it's not perfectly correlated to any historical data set. So you can't explain to, because like I had a company, I started Ticker Tags. It literally was selling Wall Street conversational data. And I worked with the biggest hedge funds in the world, the biggest banks in the world. And I spent years of my life trying to coach these billion-dollar funds on how to interpret these data sets. And they just refused to do it because if it didn't have like a 5-year correlation, and I'm like, well, people didn't even use this word 5 years ago. They didn't even express themselves in this way 5 years ago. So like, how could you have a 5-year correlation? And they just couldn't get it through their head. So as retail investors, we have to work with this data set that's highly interpretable. Because you can read a bunch of comments and I could read those comments and we could both have a different opinion on what that actually means. And so you have to develop a good sense for what people's intent are based on what they're actually saying. And the more you do it, the better you get at doing that. But if you do it well, you actually know what people are going to buy before they buy it. Like, because they talk about it first. So you're actually seeing the world unfold in real time before it becomes hard data that Wall Street firms could then analyze and trade off of. So like we have the ultimate alpha because they are too lazy and it just doesn't feel right to them to like they don't want to have to write in a report at Goldman Sachs that that they are increasing the target price for this company based on some comments that they're reading on TikTok, a TikTok video of a 14-year-old. It took them like almost 2 decades before they're willing to acknowledge Google search trend data, which they now do in all these reports. Like I was like one of the first people to analyze Google search, 16 years ago for investments, right? And like they're finally doing it the last 3 to 5 years in sell side reports. It's going to be a long time before they pick up on this.
Yeah, I can't imagine a Wall Street analyst listening to you or me saying Ashton Hall lost a race to I show speed, so Saratoga's price is going to crash. Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
Because you're so up to date with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to take action based on that.
Listen, my whole life as a money nerd kid that was like kind of an outcast, I never really worked on Wall Street institutionally. And I always wanted to know how they think. I want to know what was behind the curtain out of pure curiosity. And no matter how well I did as a retail investor, I always had this itch. And when I started Ticker Tags, that was my way in. So, I started this data company and like all the big banks backed me and I had these massive hedge funds that I had met and I had befriended people in those funds and they were like, hey, we're going to introduce you to all the other funds. And before you knew it, I was meeting with every hedge fund in the world almost. And like, I got to spend quality time with the most senior people on Wall Street for 5 years straight. And I walked away realizing, oh my gosh, there's almost nothing behind the curtain. There's almost nothing there. Like, it's just shocking to me because they have all the money and all the resources, but their incentives are misaligned. So they're simply not incentivized to think differently. They're not incentivized to take risk on novel types of research. They're just not really incentivized to do any of that. And there's nothing but groupthink because they all hang out together and they work together. And again, they still kind of are all in one area of the country. They still kind of all are older, wealthier white men. Obviously, it's more diverse now than it used to be. But retail investors never believe me. I'm like, no, we have the edge. Like, don't buy this BS that it's rigged against us. There is nothing rigged against us as retail investors. Nothing other than the fact that they're really good at like peeling pennies off of our trades, which why do you care about that? Like it's so nominal. Yeah, there are a few funds that have become really good at like peeling off a tiny bit of everything that we do as a retail trader. Yeah, they're great at that.
How many comments have you read on TikTok?
I can't even imagine. I mean, 8 or 9 years worth, 4 hours a night, each night, thousands, so what does that equate to? With
close to 1 million, maybe hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. I tell people, I'm like, for a middle-aged guy, like I am probably more in tune with that world than anybody on earth, just as an observer. Like I don't comment myself. I'm just there observing. It's so fun.
I have to ask, outside of the investing world, I know that's mainly what you're thinking about when you look at these comments, like how does this influence retail behavior? Like what have you learned about humans reading almost 1 million TikTok comments?
Boy. TikTok comments are like, I consider them to be the sunny side of social media. Wherever you have something because TikTok is, okay, there are parts of TikTok that are political, right, and news oriented, but most of TikTok is not, right? At least not where I'm reading these comments. And it's fascinating to see the extent that people find relatability in comments from people they will never meet or never even talk to again. It's a community. Like the comment section is a community in and within itself. And again, it's not about who's writing the comment. It's about them being totally free to fully express themselves. Because yeah, I mean, I guess you can click on that person and see who they are, but who does that, right? It's like this amazing place where you could you don't have to try to be cool. And by the way, that's really what's so special about the DNA of TikTok. And when TikTok was going away, that's what I think people just didn't understand. That was so, like from my generation. And I try explaining this to people from my generation. I'm like, no, you don't understand. TikTok was a place for the outcast. TikTok was the place where people that would never be accepted on Instagram and were petrified to put themselves out on Instagram, where they felt comfortable just being who they were. Whether it was dancing, singing, being stupid, didn't matter what it was. You just express your weirdness on TikTok. And all of a sudden you realize that people appreciated that weirdness, right? So I think the content on TikTok and the DNA of the history of TikTok being that place where we were all accepted, because certainly like I'm one of those people, right? I don't even know if I even had an Instagram account. I still have one today so I can like log in, read, but I never felt comfortable putting myself on Instagram or even like Facebook.
And you'll notice that in the culture of the platforms and the kind of content that does well, like something more polished will do better on Instagram and something more organic feeling will do better on TikTok.
It has to be organic on TikTok. Otherwise, it just won't even really work. But that's what makes TikTok so special. I used to tell people, I'm like, you got to get on this platform because it's going to make your life better. I was like, you're going to learn, you're going to grow as a person on TikTok. And you're also going to find a degree of relatability that you will never find anywhere else on this earth on TikTok. And you might not even know what that is yet until you get on TikTok and let the algorithm show that to you. So I think that's extended into the comments. and the comments are just so real. And as an investor, if you're trying to surface alpha, you want to go where people are being real. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to go where they're not afraid to express themselves. When the movie Barbie, remember the Barbie movie?
Yeah.
So I was at a dinner with this guy who is like a mega Hollywood insider. And he got up at this dinner and like talked to the table about all the films he was invested in, actors, like predictions they were making. And he took a stab at the Barbie movie. And this was like 3 or 4 months before it came out. And he had said that, what's the name of the actress who's the star of the blonde?
Margot Robbie?
Yeah. He said that this might be Margot Robbie's last movie. He's like, Margot Robbie has been having issues, and he goes, this is going to be the movie that actually tanks her. And I just stayed quiet at the dinner because I didn't want to like get into a feud with him over this. It was an investor dinner. I went up to him after dinner. I said, question for you. Where are you getting your information from on this movie? And he's like, well, I read the script. I know this. I know people. He goes, it's going to be a weird movie, blah, blah, blah. I was like, have you read any of the comments on film, Reddit, or TikTok, or any place where people shared the trailer for the film, or any place where people had talked about actors even that were in the film talking about how it was going? Like, do you not realize this is the biggest buzz movie I had like seen in like months out in years? I had a major trade on, like, I don't know if you remember this from Dumb Money, but like we put a huge trade on Mattel. And we're like, this movie is going to be a game changer potentially going into the release for Mattel, because the entire movie is based around a product and the hype is very real. In fact, there was this cultural moment of Oppenheimer, Barbie. Remember where people were going to see the movies back to back, and there was like a competitive thing? It had become like a meme, a cultural meme that lasted for months and months before the film came out. And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, dude, I just think you're wrong. I think you're dead wrong. I think this movie's going to be a mega success. And we just agreed to disagree.
The only thing I'd seen as big as Barbie from that had been sparked by social media was the Minions.
Yeah.
Did you remember seeing this?
Remember,
it was
absolutely.
like the whole trend of
Absolutely.
everyone coming in suits and buying out all the theaters.
But the difference is, like, Barbie was like literally a movie about the cornerstone brand of Mattel. That's what's so wild, right? And I sold out of that investment, almost all of it, the day the movie came out, right? And it was just this concept that it would run into the release, which it did. Because once I was making a bet that the reviews were going to be phenomenal. So and once the reviews come out, then it drives the hype cycle, then it drives the news cycle, then people start connecting the dots to who's going to benefit on Wall Street. It's like, it all played out so beautifully. I love it. But you need to be on like Reddit, and you need to be on TikTok comments. Like, that's where the communities live. That's where they thrive. That's where they're real.
What kinds of comments told you that Barbie was going to be successful?
It was people that were just so enthusiastic about the cast. There were rumblings of the script getting out and like how special it was. There were interviews with some of the actors that had revealed, like, in 20 years, they had never seen anything like this, so novel and so taking a risk. Like, and that's what the world needed right then, right? Like, the world needed, by the way, if you think about when the movie was released with the pandemic, like, even the brightness of it, like, it was so obvious that's what people wanted and needed. They needed an escape. This movie was so obviously built around escapism for a few hours, right? By the way, going back to Labubu, escapism, right? Came out, was born out of the pandemic. That's what people really want.
When did Labubu start in China?
It had started years earlier, I believe, in China. I mean, the Pop Mart story had been going on for years, but Labubu really blew up. It was like 21 in China, 21, 22.
Do you often look at China to predict trends in the US? Or to evaluate what could be
always
happening?
Include China. I try to include everywhere. Like if you think about like where trends can pop up anywhere, right? And by the way, it's not always like trends. It could just be any change in weather, right? Like change in anything. You have to be really open-minded about this, but you can't be closed off. So with observational investing, here's the thing. It's not just about finding change. The change has to be really meaningful for a company that you can invest in. It's not only does that change need to be meaningful, but there has to be not other things that are happening at that company that are more meaningful. On top of that, the change has to be somewhat off radar to the investing public in Wall Street. And the company has to be publicly traded. So in order to get all of those things to align, you have to have a massive funnel at the top, because there's lots and lots of starts where you get excited about something, and very rarely does it make it all the way out the bottom of the funnel to where it's investable. Okay. So if you want your funnel to be really, really big, so you want to look everywhere, at every person, everywhere in the world, no matter who they are or what country they live in, because you never know what that thing is going to be that's going to drop out of the bottom of the funnel that's fully investable. Because, I always tell people, like, you're trading at the point of information imbalance, when like there's this big thing happening that no one has seen yet, or very few people have seen yet. And then you're exiting that trade, you're selling that stock at the point of information parity, when other people finally see what you saw a day ago, a week ago, a month ago, 3 months ago. So you have to be quick, but you have to look at everything, because like for most of the last 17 years, I would only find one or two things a year that were really big, that were going to move the needle for a company that was publicly traded, that didn't have something else happening that was more important, where other investors hadn't fully discovered it yet. And I would have to start with hundreds of ideas to get to those one or two things. Now that the world has become so digitally connected and so social, and now that younger people are growing up and like it's taking over how we communicate, and now that culture literally dictates buying patterns, I'm able to make 4 to 6 trades a year like that instead of 1 to 2. So I've been saying this for a few years, because even like when Jack did his book and he interviewed me for a couple days, and he was like, that was like, I don't know, 14 years in. And I was like, Jack, the biggest trades are ahead of me. I know it. I know it. They're not behind me. They're ahead of me. I think I'm going to actually do better going forward than I did in the past, even though my account's larger and it's getting harder, because I think there's going to be more and more opportunities to discover change in the world as a regular person. And I think change is happening quicker than ever before, right? So like, I still feel that way today. I still feel like my biggest trades are probably ahead of me because of what AI is going to do. Like, AI is going to radically shift everything we thought we knew about the world, the economy, our culture, how we live, how we work. Robots, same thing. Every company in the world is going to change. Some companies are going to blow up and be enormous winners because of this. Some companies will be destroyed. And if you can figure out which are which, you just capture 1 or 2 of those trades, could make your entire life. That's still ahead of us. That's not behind us yet, because none of this has actually happened, other than like a few of the pick and shovel companies like Nvidia and stuff like that. Like, none of the real change has actually taken place yet. So how cool is that?
I would guess that it's that all the things we're talking about are super micro and that this is really the big one that people need to care about. But I guess for people trying to build capital in the meantime so they can really win big on the AI revolution and the impact of robotics, I want to ask like very hyper specific on the TikTok comments.
Yeah.
Something I would be curious of is, say a video has 1 million views, 1,000 comments. So there's the majority of people aren't commenting, right? But they're reading the comments. How do you think of like the sentiment in terms of, is sentiment established by the comments or is it a representation of the existing sentiment? Is it both?
It's
and
both.
Then bot comments. Do you look out for this looks botted, this looks fake, this looks engineered? If so, does it even matter because it's going to alter people's sentiment anyway?
Bot comments, although there are more of them now than there were a year ago, certainly, at least on TikTok, are not yet an issue, meaning that it is pretty obvious to detect authenticity in the comment section. It's not hard because it's like people are playing off. I mean, it's, at least for me, it's innate. I'm not getting caught off guard from
maybe
the comments.
Not bot comments or AI generated comments, but some type of manufacturing. Like I have 100 phones and I write very specifically oriented, positive sentiment based comments around a product that comes out.
Yeah, it's obvious is what I'm saying. Like, yeah, because at least to me, having read as many as I've read, I have a really good sense of what is organic. The organic comments just have, they have a depth of passion and enthusiasm that is not yet being replicated or manufactured.
They're very emotional.
They are emotional, yes. And that's what you look for. You always look for, because listen, emotions are everything, right? That's what drives consumer behavior. That's what really drives people to change the things that they do and what they buy and how they live their life. You got to identify that emotion. And it's not that hard to do. There might be a point in time where AI generated comments make what I do extremely difficult, but it hasn't happened yet. Right now, there's still a tremendous amount of alpha for anyone to get.
TikTok Shop. How is this influencing the stock market?
TikTok Shop is not really influencing the stock market yet. And it's because of the types of products that are on TikTok Shop. It's kind of astonishing to me that the large incumbent brands haven't attacked TikTok Shop more aggressively yet. I think they're thinking about it wrong. I think they're thinking about TikTok Shop as what they can sell on TikTok, and they shouldn't be thinking about it like that. The big brands just don't get it. They don't get the fact that TikTok Shop is a masterful marketing arm for you. Regardless, you can lose money on everything that actually sells on TikTok Shop. It's a way to like embrace content creators in a way that makes sense for them, right? Because they can now monetize their content. And it's a way for like people to find your product in a more organic way, in a forum where there is a comment section, there is a culture there, right? And people can start to form their own groupthink in those comments, because that's what ultimately happens. If the product is good, if the product is actually novel, or if the product is of value, generally people that use that product, that love that product, will show up for the product organically in the comments. You don't need to manufacture anything. And so like, I haven't like seen that yet. I assume that that's inevitable. And when that happens, TikTok Shop will become more interesting for me. I think if you're a young grinder who wants to generate income outside of just investing like me, listen, I'm no longer operational. I have spent years and years of my life, especially after the ice cream shop experience, all right, when you knew me, I made a commitment that I'm no longer going to be operational. So I am not willing to spin up brands. I'm not willing to start up companies. I don't even invest in early stage companies anymore. Like I won't even invest in small private companies for the most part, unless it's an exception. But I know that a lot of young people are actually looking to grind and make money through e-commerce and through content. And I think there's a way for them to apply my arbitrage methodology to a lot of the stuff that they do as content creators and ultimately even as like e-commerce, brands. So a lot of times I think like if you're looking, like I know a lot of your followers probably create content, probably sell products, pick products out, right? I know a lot of people are doing the same thing. They're like looking at what's trending right now. Totally fine. I had a lunch with Tim Ferriss. Oh my gosh, this is like 15 years ago. And at the time, like Tim Ferriss, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's like the ultimate, at the time, the 4-hour work week, the ultimate grinder, thinking like his brain was always operating at a different frequency. He was like miles ahead of everyone else. And when I wrote my book, Laughing at Wall Street, it was like 2009. I was trying to replicate what he was doing then. And he was like, no, Chris, you got to like think what's next, like in terms of how to market your book. So I think if you're trying to figure out what the hot product is to promote as a content creator, maybe don't look at what's trending right this second on TikTok Shop as much as you should look at things that are trending outside of TikTok Shop that haven't made it there yet, right? Like that I think becomes really interesting. So if you see like segments of products that are trending or cultural things that are emerging on TikTok, but like there's nothing on TikTok Shop there yet, or maybe you're seeing something that's trending in another country but hasn't hit it in the US yet, right? That is something that you can maybe be first to, because it's all about timing, right? Like just the same way I told you, I have to discover and surface change quicker than others, and I have to move on it. I have to surface it first, I have to connect the dots first, and then I have to make my bet first. That's where all the money's made. So you could take that same thinking to being a content creator and, okay, everybody's crushing content right now on this subject, but what's going to be the thing that's going to crush in a week, 2 weeks, a month? And rather than trying to figure out product market fit, which is what all founders try to do and fail, because they come up with a product like, I think people want to buy this, and they start a whole company. And like we always hear about the success stories of the 1 in 100 that blew up, but the 99 out of 100 that never had product market fit, that lost money for all their investors. We rarely hear about those. I know those well as someone that's invested in almost 150 startups like over my career. Why don't you find something that's actually already working, just not working in this exact channel yet? Okay. So find something that's working, find something that's trending, and then bring it to this channel.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, why do you want to take on product market fit risk, which is the death of VC? Like the guys like me in venture capital, we do not want to take on product market risk. So the reason why people hate early stage investors, venture capital investors, is because a VC will meet with you more often than not and then tell you they're interested, but never invest until they're already seeing your product work. right? So they will keep you on the fringe. Oh, we love you. We love you. Yeah. How are things going? Send me updates. Yeah. Like we're really getting more warmer, right? On your company. And meanwhile, they're just waiting and wait. Can you send me updates? Like, how is that test rollout going?
They just want one cell, you know?
We just want proof that it's working. And then once we de-risk the company, that we want it all. We want our cake. We want to eat it too. Like, we want it all. We want to make all the money by being early at a low valuation, but we also want to not take risk. I know that sounds unfair, but that's just how investors think.
So what's the easiest way to validate an idea or product? Would it just be, I mean, it sounds simple, but not a lot of people do it. I'm going to do this startup. Let me make a video about it and see if there's interest.
Yeah, maybe not wait until the product is like on TikTok shop, right? And looking for content creators. Maybe find something the same way that, okay, so most of the brands or products that I find that are taking off are not part of a publicly traded company. Okay? They're a small niche brand, a brand new product. Maybe it's a product that hasn't even been fully like commercialized yet. So that stuff is happening all the time. And there's always something new. Find it. Like, and then reach out to the company and say, hey, like, I would love to promote your product on TikTok. Like, I love it. Like, I love what you guys are doing. You guys are crushing it. I noticed you're not on TikTok shop yet. Can I help you get on? Right? Or can you get on? Like, I want to be your first content creator. Right? Or maybe you get a bunch of your, buddies and say like, hey, I have like a dozen content creator friends. We all love this. We will help you. Because chances are that company has 100 things going on and they're just trying to figure it all out. But if you could de-risk them to say, hey, I have a dozen content creator friends. We would love to promote this on TikTok. Why don't you get an account, get some inventory on there and pay us the 40%, whatever the commission is, right?
I guarantee not a lot of people are doing that. Yeah.
It's a little harder, right? It takes a little bit of extra legwork. So like, no matter what you're doing in life, 99% of people are trying to take the easy road. Like they're all trying to take easy road. If you could just go like a little bit outside of your comfort zone, the difference that makes is insane. So like, I'm not willing to do any of that stuff, but man, if I were younger, I would, and I was in that game, that would be my edge. That would be my strategy. Because, there's a lot of different ways. Like, there's a lot of different ways to crack the code of how to, like, be a breakout creator that's crushing it, selling products and whatnot with the algo. But that's one that I don't think a lot of people have really taken advantage of yet.
That's a great idea. Honestly, a gem for anyone watching. But I want to ask about the comments, because I'm guessing there's a lot of industries that have been talked about on this podcast, upcoming industries, and just ones people are working on, that they could use this idea of taking TikTok comments, amalgamate them, and do something with it. Like, how do you amalgamate them? Do you put them in a spreadsheet? Do you put them in ChatGPT? Or is it just like an intuitive knowing of, okay, this is what's happening. This is what I think is gonna like trigger from this?
So when I had my company Ticker Tags, this is pre-TikTok. We had a deal in place with Twitter. We ingested what's called the decahose, which is 10%, randomized 10% of all tweets in real time. And we had the full history of Twitter. We were doing the same thing with Reddit, and we're doing the same thing with many other communities, digital communities. So we created a ontology of about 1.5 million word combinations that we call tags. And these tags were curated by humans. We had a room of 35 people that would all day long, they would structure the way people speak about a brand or a product or a subject matter or technology. How do they speak about it in the comment section, right? Or in a tweet. and that would become a tag. Then we were able to count the number of times people spoke about that thing and graph it over years or over minutes or hours. And then we had algorithms that would detect when something was breaking out. Now that we have AI, I am sure that many people will replicate that model by scraping comments and doing similar things with artificial intelligence. But the last few years, I went full old school. I sold my company to Jefferies Bank. It became part of some larger data bank system and then broken apart because the Twitter data I heard got way too expensive. But it doesn't matter because like now TikTok is what matters. To do what I do it all by gut. I do it in my chair looking at my iPhone, and I don't tabulate anything. I don't put anything in spreadsheets. I just get a sense for it. Like I know what a large number of comments talking about the same thing is, right? I know if this is a big deal or not. Like if I start to see one video and I see a lot of people saying the same thing, I will then try to find other videos with that product in it or that dress or whatever it is. And I'll go through those comment sections. And I can just intuitively assess how deep the interest level is in that thing and the degree to which it's likely to continue to expand. What I mean by that is if there are only a few creators that have talked about that thing and I'm seeing a massive amount of interest in the comment section, I know what's going to happen next is more creators will start to do videos about that thing and they'll get an equivalent amount of interest in the comment section, right? So I know it sounds like unregimented, but I just have a knack for it. And if you start doing it, you will develop that knack really quickly. Like you just gain a sense for it. Like this is normal. This is not normal. When you're reading comments, thousands a night, you're just like, oh, wow, this is going to be big. Because like you know what's normal for a video. Like you know what's normal for this type of a product. You know what's normal for like, okay, like one of the ones I've traded for like 10 years is Crocs. Like I know what real excitement is around a new pair of Crocs and what is just the normal amount of excitement. Same thing. Every fall when winter hits, you get that first cold Arctic blast and every single female on the internet is talking about getting a pumpkin spice latte and putting her Uggs on. I know what is the normal amount of comments that mention Uggs, okay? I also know what is exceptional. And so like when Uggs came out a few years ago with the Ugg minis, you know, and then they put the height on them, like, yeah, it's like, I knew that was a breakout moment. And it's because I've been monitoring Ugg comments every single September and October for 15 years.
So you understand the levels to the positive and negative sentiment, and you're looking for outlier.
We used to have software that would quantifiably measure those levels. But I've done so much of it, I don't need the software. I just know. I know what's normal and what's not normal. And like
so
I said,
for someone
it's not
starting
that hard.
out, they need to at least develop that baseline before seeing a lot of positive comments about Crocs and being like, I need to go buy this stock.
Yeah. And what you can do, so there's a way for you to hack the system. You can go back using the time search and actually view old videos of that product or brand or that segment, and to see the degree to which people were how they were talking about it this time a year ago or 2 years ago.
How do
or
you do
3
that?
years. You can do it through search, and you just look at older videos.
Just TikTok search and go back a few years? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. You can do it manually. So until you develop your own sense, there are ways to kind of hack the system and get a sense for it. What's normal and what's not normal. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. People are like, oh, wow, this is on sale. I've never, this is such a good sale. Like, why are they putting this on sale like during the height of holiday season? That's a red flag. So that might be a lot of comments about something that seems positive, but it's actually not. So what you want to do is you want to go the prior year and the year before that to see, okay, were people talking about this being on sale and to what extent and how much was it on sale and what stores put it on sale last year and the year before and the year before. There are just so many ways to extract alpha from comments. Wall Street has some institutional type of data that they can get that from, like prior year data. It's really expensive, but we don't need it as retail investors.
And then I have to know, why not Instagram? Why not Snapchat? Why not Facebook? Because I spend a lot of my time observing Instagram Reels, and my audience initially came from TikTok. I'm a TikTok first creator, but all of everything I consume now is so Instagram focused. So I feel like this wouldn't apply to me. Is it just more consumers are on TikTok?
I'm not saying not Facebook and Instagram and Snap. TikTok is just so large and open in terms of people's willingness to fully express the way they feel on TikTok, that you get a broad, real sense of what people think. I think people tend to be more measured on what they say. Well, Facebook, first of all, is demographically skewed. Instagram, people tend to be more measured in what they're willing to say and how they want to express themselves in the comment section. TikTok, it's like even though, again, people can see who you are, your image on TikTok is very different, right, than your image over here.
Do you pay attention to YouTube long form comments, or not as important?
I do. I pay attention to everything. Yeah. To a certain extent, if you have something similar happening on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, once you go into deep dive research, you want to check all of them. But you don't need to be duplicating your research on every one, because you're going to find out more or less the same thing on any of them. Right?
This makes sense.
So you just kind of pick which one you're most comfortable with. I like TikTok because it's massively broad. People are super open on it. The comment section is robust. I think it's the healthiest and the most real comment section I've been able to find. If you're in certain niches, you need to go to like Reddit. You need to go to sometimes specialized forums. You mentioned medical earlier. If you're trying to figure out the degree to which this is crazy, I used to do this, I don't do this anymore because it's just too much work. It's too cumbersome for me, but you could find out how an FDA trial is going of a drug by finding the Facebook groups of family members and friends of people that are in the trial. And there's nothing insider about that. This is public domain, public information. But simply by reading, oh my gosh, I'm so excited because they're getting better, right? Like just stuff like that.
So you go to the study or like the papers about it, find the names and look up their Facebook profiles.
You don't have the names. They don't reveal the names in the studies. You just have to, through sheer force, have to find the people that happen to be in this. It's wild.
You're kind of a stalker, Chris.
No. So this is so long ago. This is like during the 2000s when I used to do this, and it was primarily on Facebook and then medical chat forums in the early to mid 2000s. Again, I was doing that almost as my primary investment methodology. I was so focused on it. I had a couple monster trades back then. I talk about them in my book. The part that I loved was it aligned you with something positive. So you were wanting to make a lot of money, but you were also in it for the humanity of a drug that would save people's lives. So if you won, humanity won too. So it was like such a fun thing to go through, because honestly, I don't even remember the name of the company or drug at the time, but I was like literally, I'll never forget it when the FDA trial finally came out, and I had been tracking this for almost a year, and I was like almost crying because I I had now been living with reading the comments of family members of people whose lives were going to get saved. And I know now like tens and hundreds of thousands of people would get saved by that drug finally getting approved. Because you never know if there's something small in the study that you're not privy to that would allow it to not get approved.
That's one of the most fascinating things I've ever heard, by the way. Just like you sitting there observing this family, like developing relation with them, like parasocially, and you're kind of like wanting them to win. And then they win, they're all happy, everyone's going to be cured, and you made a lot of money. It's fascinating.
It was awesome. And that's the thing for me. I'm not normal. And I just learned things about myself in the last couple of years that I was able to unpack that just started to explain everything about me. And I just never quite understood, do you know that movie or like I See Dead People? What's that movie? You know what I'm talking about? Like the Night Shyamalan.
Oh yeah, M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, his first movie, the really big one. It was a movie where like, it was a statement like your brain is like doing things during the day and seeing things that other people are not. And that's been my whole life. And what I mean by that is I've always had this like weight on my shoulders, like I'm not doing enough for people and I need to help. Like I need to, I need to help people less fortunate. Like I need to help people that are being bullied. I need to help people that are disadvantaged, to no fault of their own. And I never understood why I couldn't get that out of my head. Like I would be thinking about this every day of my life, even during the best of times. Like I would feel guilt if I'm out at night having a fun time. Because I'm like thinking about like the people that are in a hospital that can't have a fun time, right? I know this seems crazy, and so like I was like, why? Like, what is it about me that like it's not that I'm a good person? Like I'm just a person, but like, why do I care so much about that when others don't seem to as much? And I finally figured it out. That this is so weird. I was a kid growing up in the 70s. And there was a movie called The Elephant Man back then. Do you know it?
Yeah.
Really? You've seen the movie?
It's one of my mom and I's favorite movie.
You're kidding me. Did we ever talk about this?
No, I actually did speech and debate competitive acting and I performed that selection. Yeah.
This is so weird because like, I don't think anyone your age has seen that movie. Like,
I'm not an animal. I'm a human being is like the famous quote from it.
Yeah. So there were only a few movies in my house that we had like the tape to, and that was one of them. And I don't even know why, but I watched that movie a bunch. And then it started giving me massive nightmares every night when I was a kid. I could not get the Elephant Man, the pain. I couldn't get his pain out of my head. Does that make sense? It was like the wrongness. There were some scenes in that movie when he was getting massively bullied for the way that he looked. It's horrifying. Quite honestly, it is so sad. And I would literally have nightmares. And I used to tell my parents, I used to have nightmares about this movie and like, but it like stuck with me. And it must've been during a formative part of my childhood. And I just didn't have a lot of exposure to a lot of other stuff on tape. So it was the 70s, and it just made me who I am. And like to this day, it was because of that movie. And I just can't stop thinking about the pain that certain people have to deal with for any number of reasons, right? It could be a deformity, it could be a physical deformity, it could be the fact that they're a kid that just doesn't fit in. It could be a kid that, has cancer, leukemia. I lost my best friend to leukemia when I was a kid, so that probably added on to it.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 13 years old, yeah. And it happened very quickly. So that's basically defined everything about why I do what I do right now. So like, you know, I kind of have this like deep rooted sense of purpose to save the world, as dumb as that sounds, like in my own way. Or like the way I like to think of it is like, how can I like raise the floor? Like, how can I raise the floor so that people that are in those situations, whether it's kids, the elderly, the sick, the disenfranchised, like, how can I help them avoid that pain in their life? Like, what can I do? Like, is there something I can do? And that's where my whole thing of trying to lift people into the investor class, right? To give them financial freedom, to be able to afford, you know, a better life for themselves. I think that's kind of where a lot of that was born. And then when I started my foundation for kids a few years ago, and like my intent to try to grow that into like a multi-billion-dollar foundation over the course of my life, having that deep-rooted sense of purpose in everything that I do is so fulfilling and calming, if that makes sense, because I'm never chasing anything. Like, I don't remember the last time I was like chasing like wealth or chasing like a dopamine hit. You know, like I'm just never chasing. I know what my mission is. I'm going to do my best. And like, I know where the North Star is for me. Like it's my family. And then it's other families.
What was the moment that you decided or led you to kind of have this purpose of developing a multi-billion-dollar charity for children with pediatric illnesses or terminal illnesses?
I just like, my life is so unfair. Like,
Has it always been that way though?
I mean unfair in a good way.
Like, yeah, exactly. Because it was like, did you feel like you grew up in a privileged position, or do you feel like once you became a little bit successful, then you started to help others? Or has it always been the goal?
Yeah, no. I had hard times when I was younger, for sure. You know, I was definitely a kid where, for one reason or another, I didn't quite fit into the norm, which today I love. That's made me who I am, right? And like, I wouldn't give that up for the world, because as a result of that, I ended up having all these fascinating, interesting, quirky friendships with unusual, eccentric people who live on the edge, right? And like, the thought of not having those people in my life, I couldn't even imagine a life without those people. Now, not all those people are alive because of the way they live their lives, right? And that's been hard. But I've always kind of like, starting, I think in like, I don't know when it was, like early career, when my career started, like my investments started going off, like especially the last 15 years, I think it was like 10 or 12 years ago when I internally said to myself, well, that's it, I'm done. I think it was when I built my house. That was the last thing I wanted. I was like, we built this beautiful house in a beautifully safe neighborhood. And I was like, I'm done. I was like, there's literally nothing else I want for the rest of my life. There's not one physical thing that I want to buy, like, ever again. Like, which to some extent people are like, you're so boring. Like, you know, when you're friends with all these very wealthy people and everybody has yachts and they go on crazy vacations and they're just doing all this crazy stuff. And like, I'm like, no, they're like, don't you want a jet? I'm like, no.
Does it feel selfish to you?
It feels
to you individually,
it feels
not
selfish
to others.
for me. Yeah, it's very personal. So I always, like, I never judge others, because I certainly have done things that I think many others would judge as being extravagant. With all the things that have gone right in my life, like, if I can't be the one to do something majorly impactful for those that need it more than me, I don't know who can. You know, like, I actually have like the perfect setup to do something really big for other people. So it's almost, for me, it's like a crime if I don't try, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've struggled with this same philosophy. I mean, I don't mean to sound self-aggrandizing. I'm sure you are very careful about sounding self-aggrandizing yourself, being someone that wants to help other people. But yeah, I've noticed some negative effects of that. It's made business a little harder because you kind of assume that everyone comes into this wanting to help as much as you want to help. And you assume that people aren't trying to get one-ups on you, be self-interested. And is that been like a reason that maybe you weren't as successful in like your own ventures as maybe you were in investing, or maybe you didn't like it as much?
Yeah, I mean, I've had success, plenty of success and plenty of failure in my own ventures. The one thing I've learned, and I think this is a misnomer, there are so many like, this is how you make it guys out there. Like, these are the things, this is the template. The one thing I've learned is there absolutely is no template. Like, there are an infinite number of templates to be hyper successful, to be hyper wealthy. There are so many different approaches. And I think it's really important for people not to try to just copy the approach that they hear about on a podcast, right? Like, you have to find the approach that works for you. For me, my approach was playing the long game and always doing the right thing for those around me. Like, my dad told me, I forget who it was. I think it was my dad told me a long time ago when I was a kid, do not compete with your friends. Your friends are not your competition. Do not try to one-up your friends. You and your friends need to leverage each other to ladder up in life. And I've remembered that to this day. And to this day, like, one of my most successful friends is a guy that I've been on again, off again in business with my entire life. And there have been points where he has been doing way better than me. And then he lifts me up and I do way better than him and I lift him up. But this is not how people normally think, right? Like, most people look around themselves and everything's a competition. Everybody at their company is in competition against them. And they think their neighbors are competing with them. Their college, friends are in competition. Like, that is the wrong way to think about things. Like, for me, it's like, hey, like, sincerely commend those around you for their successes and help them be more successful than you. And it always works out in the end. Always in the end. It's just like, I think you probably had guests tell you this before. You have to bring value to other people. And it doesn't always have, you don't always have sight line to how that's going to help you. Like, for the last 25 years, I've taken so many meetings with people and have done so many things with individuals where I'm like, I can't believe I have to spend 2 hours of my life engaging with this person. But when I go in, I go all in, and I'm an introvert. So for me to meet with someone for 2 hours, it like takes me out for the rest of the day. I cannot tell you how many encounters I've had, or a person that I've done something for or I've given advice to, that there was no sight line for me getting anything back from that person. 9 years later, randomly, that person introduces me to someone else that ends up being a game changer for whatever venture I'm in or whatever I'm trying to achieve at that moment in time. So like, I've learned that like, you just have to relentlessly provide value for everyone in your world. Personal relationships, business relationships, people you don't know. I don't care if it's someone working at a coffee shop. You leave them smiling at the end of every encounter, right? You never know, that random person. And this is not why you do it, by the way. Like, you don't do it to get something back. You do it because, like, what's your worst case? That you ended up helping someone? Like, that's your worst case and didn't get something back? That's a pretty decent worst case scenario.
Me personally, I think I might be an outlier on this one, that I've taken this advice so deeply that it's almost cost me time, and it's led to me like often providing way more value in a situation and kind of leaking secrets, you know. And I know there's the whole thing about like reveal all your secrets, but there comes a point where alpha is important, you know. Like you couldn't share do you share every piece of alpha you find?
I share almost everything. In fact, I share everything. If I don't share something, it's not because I was holding back. I share it with my community. I share it on our YouTube channel. I share it on my X account, and I share it with all of my friends and all my text threads if I feel that I have, you know, conviction in that particular investment or that particular trade. I cannot even express to you, like, there are people that have been by my side for 20 years that still refuse to trade anything I'm doing. They just don't believe me. Like
Right.
the people that know you best, because they see the idiot side of myself and they're just like, that's just Chris talking about something. So what has happened is I built this community where I get like 10x more back than I give. So I share a lot of stuff, but then these random people in my community will surface something for me. It could be anything. It could be a Labubu, or it could be any random thing that I just wasn't thinking about because I was distracted or I was focused on something else. And I really believe about 60% of my best trades the last 4 years were initially surfaced by someone else in my world, not me.
I attribute every success I've had usually to a person that introduced me to someone else, you know, like even us, like the fact that we still haven't given anyone context on this, but the fact that you and two other people did an ice cream shop together led to me having a successful business, which led to me having this podcast, you know, it's really funny how it turns out. But yeah, maybe we could touch on that for a minute. Yeah, technically, Chris, you could own 50% of this podcast.
I forgot about that. Wow. Yeah. I forgot about it. It's all rush. It's as you're saying that, it's all rushing back to me. That was a really stressful time in my life when we met. The ice cream shop was an experiment.
Were you taking a bet on personal brand being really big?
I was taking a bet on the content creator economy extending outside of content. I didn't know exactly where it was going to go. I knew it was an experiment and I wanted to see it through. I learned so much during that experiment. Truthfully, I'm really fortunate that ice cream shop didn't work out because it was very close to working. And we were doing like 7 figures a year and like almost in gross revenue at that ice cream shop. But having any shop in Manhattan is what I learned is a feat. And it was too big. It was on the wrong street. Like everything that could have potentially gone wrong with a retail business went wrong with that business. So it's not like there was one thing that went wrong. We could have handled 2 or 3 things. It was 5 or 6 things all at the same time that kind of went south. And it was hard to get employees even then to work late night, post-pandemic in Manhattan. Everything that can go wrong went wrong. But even with that, it almost worked. But I'm glad it didn't work because it was such a time suck for me. It was, oh God,
For context, guys, essentially, I used to have another podcast called 25 Months with this guy, Tejas. And Chris was an investor in our podcast. He actually funded a lot of it. And our first episode, we had on this guy, and he talked about doing an ice cream shop. And Chris was like, oh, this is the idea. And Tejas was like, oh, this is the idea. And totally cool. Like it worked out really well for me. But they did this ice cream venture. And I think I doubled down on crime content at the time. But I had no idea that it went that well with the shop. That's really impressive.
Yeah, the shop was actually amazing. The experience was amazing. It was just anytime you have a retail operation in Manhattan with employees and a content creator, right? Because, Dylan was the world's largest ice cream content creator at the time. And it was a lot for me. Remember, I've been telling you, like, I'm trying to become unoperational.
Yeah.
A business. But again, there are things that are born out of that business, the relationships that were made that I know will pay dividends for me later on in life. So the guy that helped run that ice cream shop ended up moving to Texas with his wife. And I now helped him start another company that's thriving. So, and this individual I know is going to be a big benefit for me in one way or another over the next 30 years. And there are all kinds of other great people that I met through that. I like to tell this story about how I threw this money-losing Pokemon philanthropic
I attended
party.
that. That's the big reason we have the podcast, because I met Jack and Graham, Iced Coffee Hour, and I became good friends with Jack. We actually went out to bars a couple times, hung out, and I was like, I really like this guy's life. Like, talking to people all day, like getting interest in their business. And he kind of like helped me, gave me some advice on like what to do. We still talk about the podcast recently, like what both of us are doing. But that relationship, a big reason it came to fruition was because of the Pokemon party you had. Yeah.
I mean, threw a huge Pokemon party, spent 6 figures on it, gave away $300,000 to charity through a Pokemon box, the same one that Logan Paul bought basically. But I met some amazing people through that. And I ended up starting Collecticon as a result of that, which is now one of the most successful businesses I've ever been a part of. That paid for that experience times 10 so far. And we're still early days, Collecticon. So you just don't know. Yeah. If you go out into the world and do really hard things and, deliver tremendous value to a large number of people, like, you're basically set. I don't know how, but you just keep grinding and those people are going to come back and save you.
It's
in ways you would never
crazy.
imagine.
Like 2 years after we had the podcast, I had a friend making money on Snapchat shows, and essentially all of the shows that were part of this network got banned, like 200 shows. And I was like, who do I know with a Snapchat show? Tejas used to have one. So I reached out to Brian. I'm like, does Tejas use that anymore? He's like, no. And then he gave us a Snapchat show, and Brian wasn't even thinking about Snapchat being big. And we became like the number 1, number 2 Snapchat show consistently every single month, just because our relationship with Brian and Tejas, and like, we weren't even thinking about Snapchat shows being a big thing when I met him originally. But it's all really crazy in hindsight. I would advise most people to give as much as possible, because it always comes back to you, maybe just on a longer time horizon than you think.
Yeah. So you see, you're seeing other people that are on a different path, taking a different approach, and you're seeing them with maybe more success in certain areas. You can't go down that road. It's obviously not you. There are people throughout my career that have had huge successes, and they are complete jerks. I mean, they are terrible people that basically run their business and their relationships out of fear. Everything's out of fear. So people only do things for that person out of fear. Hey, that works for them, right? And maybe it will work for them for the rest of their life. That would never work for me. I'm not willing to live that life. I will do things the exact opposite, and I'll find a way to make that work for me. So there isn't one path, and there's like numerous paths between, like numerous ways to make it, as as a content creator. It's not like one way to make it as a content creator. I mean, we have the most unconventional YouTube channel ever for finance, where we've never taken, I think we're the only finance creator that's never taken a sponsorship. We don't really touch advertising revenue, and we don't sell anything ever to anyone in our sphere. Because we do it for fun. We're just 3 guys who are friends who would just do it for fun, try to get people investing. But I've made 8 figures from the YouTube through people who are fans and who watch and have DM'd me great ideas that I've then traded. So I've made, and I did not, that was not the design. The design of the whole, us going on YouTube was not, let me extract ideas from our community. but
Give value, you get it back.
It just happens. It just happens. Like I'm looking back going, oh, like some of these trades from a random person in Idaho that started watching our YouTube channel years ago, and now I made $1 million on that trade. That I would not have known about that if this random person didn't watch our little finance channel and end up sending me that in our Discord or as a DM on my X account. Like, who would have anticipated that? So it's not a brand deal. It's not a sponsorship. It's not ad revenue. It's an idea. But to me, ideas are really valuable.
Chris, you might not love thinking about this topic, but I have to ask because I myself, much younger than you, I've barely done any investing, but I've missed some really big opportunities. Oh my gosh, people have stories for days about these things, but I mean, one of them was searching Bitcoin in like 2010 when I was a kid, but not being able to buy it because I was too young, or like I have a screenshot of a CryptoPunk before when it was like $1,000 because I was like, oh, this NFT like seems like it was the first one, so it could be cool, but I didn't buy it. Like what's been before we talk about your biggest opportunity in investing in the future, what's been the biggest opportunity you've missed in investing?
Whew. Well, I missed, God, what did I miss? I missed so much. I mean, for every high conviction trade that's been a big winner, I mean, there are dozens.
What's something you missed that you almost pulled the trigger on? So
one very early in my investing kind of life that I missed, which I often tell the story of this, is when Michelle Obama wore the yellow J. Crew outfit at, I think it was like the inauguration. And then she was on the cover of like every magazine back then, like, I don't know, People magazine, because it was really unconventional for the first lady to be wearing an outfit from J. Crew. And the African-American demographic for a U.S. retail brand is one of the toughest demographics to cut your way into. And J. Crew did it overnight. So overnight, J. Crew had a massive influx of new foot traffic, and it was huge for them. So I actually had that, I think it was like People magazine. I had it on my coffee table at my house. And at the time, I was a social arb investor. This is what I do. This is like I rewire my brain to see these things, connect dots, and make trades. Missed it. Completely missed it. And I had the magazine on my table. I was actually reading it. I saw the story. And this is so crazy. It's like all the stuff I talk about, all the stories, are all things that we all see, but we don't see. Right? We just see them and forget about them. And after missing that trade, I was so upset with myself that I went out on eBay and I bought that outfit, not the one she actually wore, but another version of it. And it's in my closet in my house. I have a yellow, like Michelle Obama's yellow outfit in my closet. I see it every day. And it's just a reminder to me that there's alpha everywhere, that there are things to discover everywhere. Every day, there's something. So this next year, there will be companies that will explode because something that they sell got really popular, okay? The question is, will we see it in time? We will be able to look back on every one of those big pops in a stock and go, this stock went up because that happened. There is always a way that we could discover that thing when it's happening. So you just have to know that the game never ends. There's always new opportunity, and the opportunity is right in front of us. We just have to find it. We have to be more observant. And the best way to be more observant is to reduce the noise in your life, like all the stuff that doesn't matter. I mean, I've talked about this so many times. I don't read the Wall Street Journal. I don't watch CNBC. I don't listen to any of that stuff. My life is really simple and really clean. I do the same thing every day. I have coffee with my dog. I see people in the neighborhood. I hang out with my family, And then at night, I spend 4 hours reading TikTok comments and I try to find the next big thing. And then when I find it, I connect the dots. And sometimes if it all works out, I make an investment.
What industry is there the most opportunity for the social arbitrage right now? Like, where does Wall Street not understand? Like, is there opportunity in Nvidia, for instance, or is there opportunity in Tesla, or is most of that in like clothing type of companies? I know Elmer's Glue, the parent company of that, you had a big investment in with the slide and toys. Like, where do you see the gaps?
Yeah. So truthfully, it's everywhere. I think it's a big mistake to think that this only works with like apparel companies, or makeup companies. Certainly anything that is where the customer base is social in nature allows you to identify these trends quicker. But, one of my biggest trades ever was Amazon. When Amazon Web Services, AWS, was growing rapidly amongst IT decision makers. How did I find that out? I was reading web boards every single night of, these are technologist forums, and I was able to count the frequency of mentions that people were discussing using AWS or potentially bringing the cloud computing into their company, right? So you wouldn't ordinarily think that that's an area for social arb or observational investing, but they were speaking about it. And through my software, I was able to actually graph the increase in conversational volume around the word AWS, right? So no matter what it is, it could be consumer oriented, B2B oriented, it could be anything. The world continues to change every day. All you have to do is pick up on the change and connect dots. Now, understanding that not often will you be able to connect the dots and do it quick enough to something that's meaningful enough to where you're going to actually have a trade. And you have to have patience to go through 100 or 150 cycles of what we're discussing to get one investment. Do you have the patience to do that? That's the big question. I used to relate it to big wave surfing. These surfers are listening to weather radios about, weather systems around the world and what the waves look like in Costa Rica. And they're waiting for that one perfect moment where systems come together and it's creating a big enough wave that they're willing to get on a plane and fly halfway around the world to surf it. That could be months.
How many trades would you say you make a year, and how many opportunities are available every year? Is it 10 or is it 1,000?
I would say that there are realistically dozens and dozens of amazing observational trades every year. And I'm usually trading 4 to 8 out of the dozens that exist. Now, I say dozens, there's more than dozens, but using my exact methodology of looking for stuff through TikTok comments, every year I can go back to dozens of opportunities that I should have seen, whether I saw them or not. And potentially more. Those are just the ones that I know of. So this will not end. There are always more opportunities.
This is a quick one. Why don't you do meme coins and why don't you do sports gambling? Because it's super similar, and we've had a lot of kids who have treat meme coins they gamify it. They will sit there all day and just tie news to meme coins and be the first person to buy it and understand the sentiment of how big this thing can go.
Yeah. Good for them. Part of the reason why I don't do meme coins is because of them. There are a reasonably large number of very sharp young investors who are in their basement 7 days a week, monitoring every single one of these meme coin launches. They are so knee deep in that world that makes for tough competition for someone like me. Okay. Also, for me to compete with them at that level, I would need to spend that much time on meme coins, and I hate meme coins, and I'm not going to do it. That's not the life I want to live. The life that I live, reading comments of regular people all around the world of what they're doing in the real world, in real life, even when I don't find an investment, is kind of fun. I end up learning about things that I can talk to my 15-year-olds about, which are like, Dad, how do you know about that? I'm like, well, I was researching it. Or I'll like bring stuff up to my son or daughter. I'm like, hey, do you know about this yet? And it's like, it's fun. I love it.
It's very similar with meme coins. The culture's kind of changed for them to be more based on like, what's a good example of something it's Mog coin or like LooksMax coin.
There is an intersection. Agreed. But again, there's a level of sophistication and quickness to that trading that is actually the information arb window for meme coins is very tiny.
Right.
You got to have algos to trade that stuff. You got to know people, right? Like it's an insider's game. I have no interest in listen, I know a lot of crypto guys. I love them to death. I keep telling them at some point, you guys can teach me more about your world, but I just don't have mental bandwidth for it right now. And I don't want it. I don't need it. It's not what you have to have some degree of enjoyment in what you do to be great at it. I really love what I do. It's fun. It's really interesting. The meme coin stuff, it's fine. It's just not for me.
They have very similar skills to you, I will say, but they're probably not looking in the right opportunity because they're competing against 50 of you or 100 of you with hyper-specific knowledge about this thing when you're competing against Wall Street and other retail investors.
I know who my competition is, and it would seem like my competition is super robust. It's one of the world's largest industries with more power, more wealth, and more resources than anyone else in the world, and more to gain. But they are not great. I know them well, and I know I could beat them. I'm not afraid of them. And I mean, they know me well. These guys call me for ideas. Like we're friends, I'm like, but I just, there's something about developing expertise in a domain that's really empowering in life. You don't always know how that's going to shake out. You don't always know where you're going to fall in life. But if you are lucky enough to fall into some domain where you're able to develop some advanced level of expertise and credibility, don't leverage it, right? Like don't keep popping off it could take a long time for you to get there in life. You might be in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. If that actually happens for you, you got to go all in on it. And so the one thing that I learned, because like I used to split my life roughly 50-50 between trading publicly traded stocks and early stage investments in startups, meeting 100 or more founders a year. Really cumbersome. I loved it, but I also hated it. It took me 3.5 years to stop doing that because ultimately I realized that I was wasting my time and attention.
Right.
I've replaced it with something else, but ultimately I'm able to spend more time and focused on doing the thing I'm really, truly great at.
I have a dumb question for you, a really dumb question, but I think it might be more interesting than people think it is. What makes a stock go up and what makes a stock go down?
Yeah, it's actually a great question because it's not what people think. People always ask me, why the hell did the stock go up today? Or like, it shouldn't have gone down. There's no reason. I'm like, first of all, there are an infinite number of things that can push a stock up and down. Some things you will never see. Okay. Some things you might see a stock go down on a day that they had nothing but phenomenal news and not understand that the reason it went down is because a very large shareholder that has owned that stock for years has been looking for a liquidity moment to exit that position because they become frustrated with management. They have other uses for their funds. There could be a number of reasons why they want to get out of that stock. So the day that stock has the greatest news ever, it maybe goes up for a little bit and then goes down. It's because they were looking for buyers for all their shares.
It's why IPOs often have such a large crash.
There are numerous reasons. But the one thing that everyone should understand is that generally, the reason why a stock goes up or down is because the investing public and institutional Wall Street came across some piece of information that day that was new to them, that they perceive to be either positive or negative. So let's look back at what I just said. It's because some information was surfaced by someone that was new to them that they perceive to be positive or negative. We don't always know what that information is because sometimes that information surfaces in credit card data that only institutions have that are like, wow, they're really crushing it. And you're like, why'd the stock go up? Because some hedge fund had the data, right? That we don't have. Sometimes it's a private report that someone does on a channel check in China that says, hey, this channel where they're buying the supply from just reduced their inventory this quarter by 50% because Apple's going to buy less of those things. So it's negative for Apple, right? Like we might not be privy to that information, but it is always about a piece of information that someone had that day that they perceive to be good or bad. That's why stocks go up or down. They go up or down because of something new that was unanticipated. So the story that I always tell when I was a kid and I wanted to invest in Toys R Us the week before Christmas because they're going to sell more toys. And my dad said, no. This one I was like 12. He's like, they're not just going to go up because it's Christmas, because the world already knows it's Christmas and they already expect it to go up. So you have to find something that other people don't know. That's when a stock goes up or down. It's
almost the perception of the perception.
Well, sometimes the information could be real. It could be correct. Sometimes the information could be a perception that is false, but people still believe it. It really doesn't matter as long as it's what people think in the moment. If they end up being wrong, the stock will likely reverse at some point in the future when people realize that was not correct.
A good example is Trump saying the market's going to do amazing this year. It's a great time to buy. And the market just buys because they assume other people will buy because they think it's a good time to buy.
That's exactly correct. It's some information that's being interpreted positively or negatively. Okay. And it's that simple. There's nothing more to it. So everything I do is about surfacing some other piece of information that the world is not fully privy to yet, that I think they will become privy to at some point in the future. And when the world does, the stock is likely to move directionally in the way that I think it will move. So I'm always just trading one piece of information. That's all I do, is I trade one piece of information at a time.
Let's talk about robots. I think you've given a good...
I've replaced startups with robots.
I guess, Chris, all this is great. You talk about how there are dozens of opportunities every year, and you take action on less than a dozen of them, sometimes more. But what's your all-in? What's the big thing for you? What are you can't sleep at night about it. You're thinking about it so much. What's going to be the biggest investment of your career?
It's AI and robotics. And this is a touchy subject. I've received more hate on this subject matter than I've received on anything I've ever done. As soon as I start talking about AI and robots, people start saying, oh, he's a technocrat. He wants to take away our jobs. And like, I get it. I know it's controversial. Listen, I believe that we still live in a really, really rough world. Not people like me. I live the life. I live in a great world, but there is still so much out there that is so rough for so many people that don't have access to great healthcare, don't have access to great mental health care. People that are dying for no reason due to storms. And that's on my mind because, one of our friends lost two of their children this week to a flash flood in San Antonio at a summer camp.
I read about that. I'm sorry to hear that.
No, I mean, it's just like, again, these are things that are on my mind. It's 2025, and there are so many people hurting in this world. There are so many people that are still doing backbreaking work. There's so many people that have to spend the bulk of their greatest years in their 20s and 30s taking care of an elder person in their house. We don't think about that, but it happens all the time. Life is still very hard and really bad for a lot of people. And I do feel that ultimately AI and robotics is our best path forward to help solve all of these issues, all these problems. Does it come with a big negative? Yeah. I mean, well, I think then a good starting point for this is you can't stop it. Okay. I think that's a great starting point. I'm not the guy making AI. Right? Like, I don't work at OpenAI. I don't work at any of these companies. It's unstoppable. So from my perspective, okay, we know this is coming. What do we do about it? Right? Do we just want to like bitch about it? Or do we want to try to find the positive and try to emphasize the positive and try to make the positive as big as it can be, to hopefully counteract whatever negative comes along with it? So
why is it inevitable?
You can't stop evolution, and you can't stop the evolution of technology. Like, have we ever been able to stop it ever in our history? Do you think we're going to go forward the next 200 years and just have technology be frozen in time? Like, we don't get to do that. Like, we live in a world where there's lots of people that might not share that same philosophy. Who's going to stop them? You know, we can't just stop every human on earth from advancing in the way that they feel is needed. You know, we can pick and choose certain things like, you know, nuclear weapons, and that's hard as is. Just that one thing is hard to stop, right? You're not going to stop people from, pushing AI forward and robotics.
That was the thing I was thinking about, is nuclear weapons could end humanity. And I guess what stops someone from just ending humanity?
Well, first of all, like we're incentivized for one not to go off, first of all, right? Think about that. Like, we have only a small number of countries in the world that have the ability to set off a nuclear weapon. And we do have the ability to communicate, and we have mutual incentives for that not to happen. We're incentivized against it collectively. Now, you get that in enough hands, and someone's going to not care about that incentive. It's a tough subject. I think AI is a really tough subject when you think about it long term and the damage it could do. Again, I'm no longer operational, right? So like, I don't work at these companies.
But it has to be seen as more positive than negative for it to be being created at the moment, right?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that we're not engaging more positively between efforts and countries to kind of have a framework around how we're going to keep this safe long term. But again, it's out of my control. So what I do know is that this is coming. It's unstoppable. So what can we each do to make the most of it for ourselves, our families, our communities, our country, those in need, right? What can we do to help lift the floor? Lift the floor for those that are disadvantaged, that are sick, the elderly. Like, how can we improve life of those that need it most? And I think AI and robotics are going to be the biggest thing that has ever happened for the disadvantaged, quite honestly. And so I'm excited about that piece of it, and I'm choosing to focus on that piece.
When do you foresee the average individual having access to their personal AI humanoid?
Well, let's separate AI and embodied AI, first of all. I think AI agents, agentic AI, which is essentially every person having some digital intelligence that assists them throughout everything that they do in life, that is coming in the next couple of years, right? That's starting up in the next couple of years. And that will be a game changer for humanity in just numerous ways.
A digital assistant or a physical one?
A digital one.
Why would you say that we don't have that now? Like, what are we lacking?
So what you have is access to a tool today, an artificial intelligence tool that has some limited memory and kind of has somewhat of a framework of how you like questions answered, right? And stuff.
That's the truth right there.
But moving forward, you'll have essentially a digital assistant who will be an all-knowing AI that will have some degree of integrations into everything in your life. Your work, your emails, your relationships, your calendar. It will get to know everything that you want it to know about you. And it would theoretically assist you in every aspect of your life, both personally and professionally, in more of a proactive form, as opposed to you having to, ask a question or send a prompt. That's why you're starting to hear rumors about AI widgets that, Joan Ivey is working on at OpenAI that would theoretically record you 24 hours a day and, or at least when you want to allow it to, and get to understand all of your engagements. I'll give you a perfect example. I just had a conversation with a guy whose son is an exterminator, like a pest control person, right? And the dad is an AI consultant. So his son is wearing a device that records every single conversation with every customer. He knocks on doors. He goes to dozens and dozens of houses every day. He knocks on doors. He engages with customers. He goes through his day. He goes through his work. And every night that AI basically makes a summary for him and helps educate him on everything he did right or wrong that day and what he could learn, right? It takes all the customer objections and how he dealt with each of those customer objections. And then the AI kind of teaches him what he can do better the next time he has an objection like that. So he doesn't have to prompt, hey, if a customer says this, it already knows everything that happened to him that day. It can already get ahead of it and say, hey, here's some areas where I think I can help you out. How amazing is that? Now, on top of that, he's using that AI export with his boss and saying, here's everything I did yesterday. Here are all the objections I overcame. Here are all the wins that I had and how I went about it. And he's making his whole company smarter, right? And his boss is completely floored. He's like, this is insane. Like, I can't even, this is like stunning. And this is like right now. No one's doing this. This is like a peek. This is a peek into the future. And I just told you something that's being done by a pest control salesman. Now, imagine extrapolating that type of agentic AI across every human on Earth and whatever it is that they're doing, helping them get smarter, helping them get more efficient, helping them with their day. We used to work a lot longer hours if you go back 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago. Our work week, right, has changed. We have hope for a life where we're working less 25 years from now, right? Where we're not doing back-breaking jobs that are going to tear our spine, right, later in life. That's the hope for humanity, right? The hope is those that are blind will be able to see, right? Those without limbs will have amazing fake limbs, right, in the future. Those who can't walk will be able to walk. Just in all the deficiencies, this has the opportunity to make those better. That's the optimist in me. When you start bridging it into robotics, it gets really interesting because now all of a sudden, you talk to the average person in the world and they will tell you, even in 2025, 80 or 90% of their life is consumed by cumbersome labor, working around their house, picking up, doing just the same things every day. I mean, ask any mom in the world what their life is like, and they will just spill out. They are exhausted mentally, physically, dealing with stuff, right? Could we have, talk to any elderly person who can barely get up from bed to go to the bathroom, or any kid that's taken care of that person for 2 to 10 years of their life. Embodied AI, robotics, humanoids, which is half of my life now, focused on this segment. I've been invested in almost all the world's great humanoid companies. I think this will be the biggest game changer that we've seen in our lifetime. I think Elon is wrong on his timeline, but correct that we will eventually have billions of humanoids, and they will be doing all the things we don't want to do, and all the things that we just can't do. And it will redefine what we consider an economy to be, the word economy to be. It will help industries to grow, and it will create new industries we can't even dream of today. And I do believe it will ultimately create way more better jobs for every human on Earth. I'm, again, an optimist when it comes to that as well. But history has proven that every one of these technological innovations has ultimately created more higher paying, better jobs for humans. I see this no differently.
Yeah. This one I hear all the time online. And I think there gets a point where it might take away jobs completely. And I want to talk about that. But a good example I can think of is there used to be window tappers that would wake people up in the morning by tapping on their window with this long stick. And alarm clocks were made, and they lost their job. But now there's jobs for everyone that makes alarm clocks, But
But it takes the jobs away and it brings us new jobs. So there is so much work left to do that we can't get to today because we only have so many resources, right? Like, I'm like an animal welfare guy. The truth is, animal welfare, we're not even scratching the surface, right? And the reason why we treat the animals that we have the way that we do is because we have bigger problems. Let's just be honest. We have bigger problems. And there's not enough resources, there's not enough people to deal with, making sure that every animal is treated in a humane way, whether they're ultimately going to be slaughtered or whether they are in a shelter. It doesn't matter, right? So what happens is, once we solve all these problems that we're working on today, we get to work on the next layer of problems, and then the next layer. And we continue to make life hopefully better, and we continue to lift the floor, right? So yeah, like, we have a great life, but so many others just don't. They just don't. And imagine being able to put all of our resources into solving those really tough problems that we would love to solve, but we have to pick and choose. Like look at China. They're growing as an economy, but look at how much they're polluting. Why? They can't do both. They can't grow and be completely great. So but yes, we can figure all this stuff out. It's just, we have to reallocate resources. So all these humans that are going to get shifted away from these jobs, theoretically, will be able to reallocate to the next layer of work that needs to be done to kind of make humanity, to kind of raise the bar on humanity and how we're able to live.
What jobs do you think are the most AI proof?
Shoot, I think I don't even know if it's about being AI proof as much as it is, there will be a whole slew of additional jobs will morph into something where the AI is inferior or needs assistance, or where we need growth, right? So it's kind of okay, the AI is making this company so much more efficient. What do companies like to do? Do they ever stop wanting to grow and get bigger, get into new things? Great, the company solved that problem. Now they got to do this other stuff that needs more humans on top of the AI, right? So less humans per division, more divisions. Less humans per company, more companies. Less humans per industry, maybe more industry. Industries we can't even imagine. Industries that exist right now, being a content creator, nobody 75 years ago would believe that would be a valid way to live your life as a job. Doing a podcast. It's super valid. It's super educational. It is unbelievably important for our society to have content creators and podcasters and all this stuff, like ridiculously important. Not to mention the fact that it's entertaining and it's connective, right? Try explaining that to someone 80 years ago, right? Like, forget it. So we're not going to wrap our brain around how this all works out over the next 30 years. And there's no reason for us to like struggle with that now. It will happen when it happens. Like, we shouldn't be wasting so much time trying to figure out what those things are. But what we should be doing now is preparing ourselves. So the one thing that I'm adamant, if you're a young person or any person, that you must do, you absolutely must do this, is deeply engaging with AI tools and with conceptual AI prompting in education, okay? So there are a ton of content creators out there. There are a ton of people out there explaining this stuff. My favorite is a guy named Nate, right? Nate's on TikTok. He's on other stuff, but he's kind of like the Mr. Rogers of AI. And I tell everyone, he has one video a day. It's like 2 minutes. Watch it. And then he usually is like, if you want more in depth, I have a 60-page paper I wrote on that you can go read. But if you need to understand the intricacies and the nuances of how to work with AI, how to prompt AI, like, AI is not surface level. It is a massive industry. It's the biggest industry we've ever known. And it's just getting started. The same way when we had social media for the first time. So when social media was first starting, think about the industries that have been spawned by that. The social media managers, how it changed marketing, how it changed everything, how it changed e-commerce. There's a window of time where every single person that just takes a little bit of initiative to spend 30 minutes a day learning will be in the top 1% of all the workforce, to where whatever, I can't tell you what your job is going to be in 3 years or 5 years. What I can tell you is if you spend 30 minutes a day just teaching yourself about this stuff through videos and reading and learning the tools and using the tools and playing around, that you are going to be fine. The same way that if at the birth of content creation, you would have just taken your darn phone and started taping yourself doing literally anything. I don't care if you wanted to dance, if you wanted to talk about your favorite subject matter with nobody watching, just do it. Just do something. Could you imagine if you just started doing something back then? You'd be fine now.
It's hilarious that you could have done anything. Like, you could talk about tables and probably have $1 million business from
anything. The crazy thing about AI is, like, it is going to fully democratize the intelligence layer. The intelligence layer is the most unfair layer that we have, okay, in society. Meaning there is such a discrepancy between that person and that person. That person is just naturally intelligent, or that person went to an awesome school, had an insane family unit, had private tutoring, and now they're 18 or 20 or 22, and they are just way more skilled and intelligent than that person, because that person didn't have the perfect DNA, didn't have a great upbringing, maybe came from a broken home, maybe went to a terrible school, maybe didn't have people around them to show them the right way, okay? The intelligence layer is really unfair right now. So much so that this person B doesn't even know, no matter how hard they try, how to communicate with someone over email to potentially get a chance to get a job. That person knows how to write an email. AI is changing all of that. And that AI agent that you're about to get is going to change all of that. So no matter who you are, everyone's going to get a private tutor. If you want education, you're going to get best in class education in any subject matter that you want. If you want to know how to approach Jack to get on his podcast, you are going to be just as skilled as someone else at knowing how to do that. So if you have a great story and a great background, and you're going to be able to communicate it in a way that you'll pay attention to. So this is super exciting, okay? The intelligence layer is about to get democratized. So knowing that, I don't think you should focus on that layer. You should focus on how to use the layer. So now it's all about being resourceful. It's about putting together pieces, being resourceful, putting together the ideas with how to execute on the ideas. Everybody becomes a manager. Less doers, more managers now, right? And everybody has access to a workforce, theoretically, a digital workforce, eventually a physical workforce with bots. But you have to be creative. By the way, we're all creative. You just got to find your creativity, right? Everybody needs to dig deep, find their creativity. Everyone needs to learn how to not be afraid and to be resourceful. Okay. So we were all afraid at one point of putting on that suit. If you were like a young kid in the 70s or 80s, joining the workforce and going to like a big company, that wasn't there was nothing natural about that. You didn't even know how to like put a tie on, how to brush your hair the right way. You don't know how to act in that environment. Too bad. That's what going to work was like in the 80s. Right? 70s, 80s, like button up, put your suit on, act this way, shake this hand. I don't care if you don't know how to, you're going to figure it out or you're not going to be successful. This is one of those moments. Get in touch with your creative side. You have to overcome fear of newness. You have to find people that you resonate with, that you're willing to allow to teach you, content creators, right, about artificial intelligence and how to use it properly. You have to use all these tools, even if it's doing the stupidest thing in the world with them. You just have to get out there and do it, even if it's not your job, just so you can get an edge on everybody else.
Chris, how do you use AI to become smarter? Or how do you use AI to make more money? Like, what are some things that you realize you're doing with maybe ChatGPT or another tool that other people aren't, or it's not as common?
Yeah, so I've been using ChatGPT since the day it came out every day. Every day. I use it now as an assistant to help me invest. So if I find something that is trending or something that's, getting more popular, or I find something in a comment, I will immediately, this saves me hours to days, by the way. I will immediately ask AI to help me find all the companies in the world that are touching that subject matter in any way, or that product in any way, or that class of products. I want to know which of them are publicly traded on which exchanges anywhere in the world. And I want to know what percentage of their revenue does that product make. All the stuff that would take me days of work, I can do in about 10 seconds now. So yeah, it helps me do more. But I'm using it as a tool. And that tool over time is going to become a bigger and bigger and bigger part of what I do. That tool will eventually help me surface things. At some point, the tool might do everything on its own, and all the alpha might disappear. But I'm not going to worry about that day. I'll figure out what I want to do after that. Maybe by that time, we're all kind of entering this age of abundance that I love talking about, right?
I'm curious what that looks like.
We don't know. The age of abundance simply means that we have more time and we have more, that we're using more of what makes us human, right? Because like right now, again, so many people spend their whole lives basically doing this all day. You ever been to an Amazon distribution plant?
No, I haven't.
Like they're literally just,
yeah.
Imagine doing that for 40 years. Like that's what so much of the world is still doing. Most of us are sitting in a cubicle doing horrible repetitive work, not using our minds, not using our creativity, not enjoying the bulk of our life, which is our work life, which I get to enjoy mine, but they don't get to enjoy theirs. So what do we want to do? We want to raise the floor. We want more people to get to actually do what they're great at, to use their mind, their creativity, their resourcefulness, to actually get to do something that they don't hate every day of their life. That's the goal. The age of abundance might simply mean that more people get to do that. And then, I hate to say it, but we're going to hate this part of it, but it already exists. There might be a lot of people that just don't have to do anything. There are a lot of people right now that don't work. We don't talk about it. There are a ton of people that just simply don't work.
Yeah.
Right? Listen, that's not me. If by raising the floor, we also raise the ceiling, if we have trillionaires, if we have people that just get to do nonsense all day, that doesn't negatively impact. All I care about is raising the floor for the other people, right? So I'm not going to concern myself too much with people that just get to mess around. If I think that's morally or ethically not okay, it's not my business. I don't care about it. I'm more worried about the people that are in a crappy situation today, trying to make their life better. And robots are coming. Robots are going to initially do the dull, the dirty, and the dangerous. So the dangerous jobs, the dull jobs, the really dirty jobs, the horrific jobs, those are the jobs we're putting robots on first. But there's a bigger goal for robots. I think probably the number one thing that robots will do for humanity is elder care. Elder care is the biggest issue we have. I'm dealing it right now through various friends of mine, family members. People get old, they have surgeries, they have trouble doing things they used to do. You still feel like you're 25 in your head, but your body doesn't allow you to do that stuff anymore. Robots are going to change a lot of that. You lose your dignity as you age. Believe me, you have someone wiping your butt, you're going to lose your dignity. I don't want anyone to have to lose their dignity unless it's absolutely necessary. Robots are going to make life better for hundreds of millions of elderly people. It's going to allow them to retain their dignity. It's going to allow them to do more, to engage more with their family, with their loved ones, with the things that they love to do in life. They're going to get to go outside more. They're going to not have to place that burden, that guilt, that burden on their children. This is huge, and it's going to free up other people that would otherwise be spending years of their life doing that hard work for an elderly person. It's going to free them up to maybe do things with that elderly person that's more engaging, to get to spend quality time with them and to get to have their own life, maybe have children or have a job or explore a career that they're interested in that they might have had to give up otherwise.
There's an infinite number of possibilities with the AI robots, but I guess my hiccup with it is, say you are a construction worker or just an average physical labor worker in the US, and your goal, I would say for the average person, is to try to buy a house or make your mortgage payment every month and then have a bit of a retirement savings. I'd say that's fairly average. When we get to the stage where AI robots replace construction workers building a house, do you think that'll be a free service ever? Or do you think that will always be something we pay for?
No, I think it's always something you pay for. Listen, construction workers used to do everything manually. And then we had something called construction equipment, right? We have bulldozers now. We have all kinds of construction equipment. So what happened to all the construction guys that used to just have something held in their hand all day, right? Now what do? They operate equipment, right? What does a construction worker do in 30 years? I don't know. But I could tell you this, when we have access to the infinite physical labor machine, theoretically, right? It's going to allow us to build things that we never would have imagined we would build. And that's going to require a massive number of humans to help figure out and supervise, right? Like, we're going to be working together with robots for a very long time.
Is that guaranteed though? Because I would guess that we would reach a place of super intelligence and the robots being able to build each other, and people would just care about putting all their money into getting as many robots as possible.
It's never about will humans always be needed for this job. The concern, the thing that we have to figure out is if it happens too fast. If it happens too fast, we have to come up with a way to help those that were displaced. None of us want to have to do any of these jobs that exist in the world today, for the most part. There will always be some people, right? None of us want to be forced to having to do any of these jobs if we didn't have to. If I could tell you right now that there would be a world where we can continue to all have the resources, but not be forced to do those jobs, and we could pick new things to do with our time. Maybe the concept of work changes. Maybe work evolves to something that me and you can't even imagine today. Maybe it morphs into something that looks very different. It's entertainment, it's exploration, it's kind of morphing how much can we push our minds to be creative, to work with the. I don't know. Like it's a nonsense game to try to figure all that out now. We shouldn't be borrowing trouble from the future because we have no ability to foresee what's going to happen in the future.
If you had to give a general timeline, is that kind of event where humans aren't working 1,000 years away or 50 years away?
Well, again, I think the definition of work changes. So when you say not working, I would like to think
not having to work.
I think that the dull, the dirty, and the dangerous jobs, the really bad ones that we don't want people to work for their whole life. I mean, okay, I'll say it this way. Any job where you would not want your child to have to work for their whole life, I'm going to call those bad jobs. Okay? It doesn't matter what it is. If I'm like, hey, do you want your daughter to work in a sewing factory her whole life? You know, do you want your daughter or son to be taping boxes their whole life? No matter who I'm asking, like, you'd probably be like, I would prefer that that's not there. I would prefer a different job for them that's more creative and interesting and engaging. I think those jobs will disappear within a couple decades, okay, in the next 20 years. So I think that's what I call lifting the floor, right? So there will still be tons of human work. I don't care. All these AI geeks that talk about super intelligence to completely displacing very few of these people have spent any sort of meaningful real time building real businesses, okay? And seeing how much longer everything always takes than what was predicted throughout all of humanity. Everything is going to happen a little bit slower, and that's probably a good thing, because if we move too quickly, that's when we have issues. But again, that's on us to figure out. If all this does is make the world safer and more productive and more efficient, it's up to us to figure out how to properly reallocate that wealth and those profits and those resources to help those most in need. I don't have the answer to that, but it's a good problem to have, right? And I would have to imagine that we're going to solve that problem. Because if you don't, that's when things get ugly, right? That's when you have revolts and catastrophic, right, situations geopolitically. There's a lot of change coming, and we're going to have to figure out how to deal with it. That's a challenge for us.
How can we take advantage of this? Because I would love to know what companies you're invested in, because you'd mentioned that you're an investor in OpenAI, right?
Yes.
Is that a private company?
Yes.
Got it.
It's really hard to invest in, and I hate that. It's unfair. Everyone should get to invest in any private company. I spent years trying to push through crowdfunding legislation, and it all went sour.
I'm not saying this is easy, but the requirements are $250,000 a year for 2 years or something to be an accredited investor?
you have to say that you make that. Or you have to say that you have a certain net worth. I'll just leave it at that.
But you still don't get access to that deal flow, right?
The deal flow is actually more available now than it ever has been because we have numerous secondary marketplaces like Hive and Forge that basically buy employee shares, right? They buy pieces of secondary and then they offer it to you inside of a fund. Okay, you got to pay a little bit of more fees than an institutional investor would have to pay, but at least you have that optionality. They still have minimums, usually of like $25,000, sometimes $100,000. So it's out of reach for most people, unfortunately. You talked about Robinhood. You saw Robinhood this last week talk about the tokenization of secondary markets to where they were going to like tokenize the ability to invest smaller dollars in private companies. We'll see how that shakes out. That's really interesting. I hate it. I hate it that everyone doesn't have access to this stuff. I do believe, now I know Sam's a controversial figure and I don't know him. I do believe that OpenAI is on track to potentially becoming one of the largest companies in the world. We've never seen a company grow this fast, ChatGPT. They're up to like 1 billion users. Insane.
Are they doing work on humanoids?
Yes, they are. So OpenAI, this is not like a huge secret to those of us that are like in this sector, but OpenAI and Meta and Apple and Amazon, obviously Tesla, are all developing humanoids. They have varying degrees of humanoid divisions, whether they're in the planning stages, the strategy stages, the hiring stages, or have already moved on it internally. Essentially every big tech company is getting involved with humanoids. Google, through the partnership with Aptronic.
Who would you bet on?
Well, I have placed bets on the companies that were in leadership positions. There are only really 2 scalable supply chain ready companies that you could invest in outside of Tesla. Tesla obviously has Optimus, and anybody can invest in Tesla. Now, investing in Tesla for Optimus comes with the baggage of the car division and FSD, which you might love or hate. And Elon, which you might love or hate. The only other 2 companies that I feel are supply chain ready and scalable are Figure AI and Aptronic. So Figure AI is run by Brett Adcock in San Francisco, and Aptronic is run by 2 guys that I know, Jeff Cardenas and his co-founder Nick in Austin, Texas. And both companies are super interesting. There are others, but I don't think they're not commercialized, really.
What are the the systematic bets you would place? Like maybe Nvidia has the chips for the AI or those kind of things.
Nvidia has the chips for everything, right? And they're getting heavily involved in robotics. So Nvidia is like planting their foot in the robotic space and embodied AI, and they want to have the chipsets that go on board. They also want to control a lot of the sim training behind the scenes, and they're offering that to all these robot companies as a resource, and they want to have the global model, right? So the fascinating thing about AI right now is we've run out of data. Okay, training data. So we've trained it on all the data that we have pretty much. And we need new training data to put into these deca-billion-dollar models to reach super intelligence. So the only way we can get that more data is either one, simulated data, which is where a program like that Nvidia has will actually run through an infinite number of simulations of how humans might act in certain situations, and it trains on that data over and over and over again. It's super scalable, but has limitations. The gold standard for training data for a global model is actual physical training data, to where you put on a suit or you wear gloves, and as a human, you actually do things in the real world. And the data, the sensor data and the movements and how you're interacting and the video of that is kind of uploaded into the foundation model. And then it learns more about how we interact with each other as humans. Now, you could also, the sim model, what I didn't speak about, also has a component to it of video data, right? Uploading all the YouTube, data, uploading all the TV shows, all the movies. All that stuff is great, but it's not nearly as good as real time, physical, real life data. Imagine that. Imagine if it was pulling in data from 1 million people every day doing things in the real world, how much quicker the model would be trained for super intelligence, because it needs to learn everything and the learning never stops. So the world is constantly evolving, right? So you need to continue training it on the new stuff that happened today that wasn't happening yesterday.
I met a few people who have received very large checks from large AI companies to buy their hard drives of just thousands of hours of YouTube or TikTok content. Maybe things like cooking are big ones, but it's a really interesting. I almost went deep into that a couple months ago to try to sell these companies on like big amounts of influencer data, but they didn't want any of it. They wanted like really physical training data, which I noticed.
That's what they need. And like I said, the gold standard's called teleoperated, where you have an actual human person and it's reading data, not just through the video, because you usually have a headset on and it's recorded, but through the sensor data, the movements of your fingers, your arms, everything. It just knows how we think, how we work, how we move, how we handle edge case scenarios. As you know, there's an infinite number of edge case scenarios. It has to learn all of them so that we can safely deploy robots throughout the world to help humans and to do things. So that's kind of the next thing that's coming. It doesn't happen as quickly as people think. People have these mindsets that we're going to have like 1 billion robots here in a few. No, it's not going to happen that quick. It will happen slower. But when it does happen, it will be one of the biggest things that has ever happened to humanity, because it will free our minds and allow us to do more, and allow us to do more interesting things. Like, think about how much human bandwidth is wasted on just repetitive, brainless work. Okay, when TikTok came out, we discovered that the most creative, entertaining, talented people in the world were not in Hollywood, didn't we? The best storytellers, the best dancers, the best singers, the funniest comics are actually unknowns that we would not have discovered until we gave them the tool of TikTok. So imagine what we'll be able to achieve as humanity once we free all these people up from having to do all of that stuff. I mean, who knows, right? Like, who knows what will be created, what will be built? And like I said, for a very, very long time, humans aren't going anywhere. We're going to need humans for a long time. What happens after that? I don't know. I don't know what work means in 40 years, 50 years. I have no clue.
What's your view on Neuralink?
I think it's a fascinating company. As an investor, it feels rich at $9 billion. I'm actually invested in a Neuralink competitor at like 300 million. I love it though. I love it. Anything, again, when we start to think about how we raise the floor for those that are most in need, for those that have neurological issues, for those that are brain dead, for those that are in comas, for those that are blind or deaf, or have any number of issues, learning disabilities, like Neuralink is potentially the answer. So I don't know what Neuralink brings us the next 5 to 10 years, but the stuff that Neuralink brings us the next 10 to 40 years, that gets exciting. Because like, that's all I care about. All I care about are like the people that need it the most.
People having the tools to achieve their full potential.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
What's a company you would be scared to short for the next few years?
Oh,
or what's a company you would never short?
Well, I would be fearful. Oh boy, that's a great question. I mean, I don't, things change, right? Like I don't say never. I'm sorry. The world changes, the circumstances change. The last time I answered a question like that was, what was your forever company? And it was Disney. And then Disney did certain things that got into a lot of trouble, right? And I was like, oh shoot. I think it's really hard. I think if you look at a company like Tesla is going to be really rocky the next few months and maybe the next few years. But anytime you have a company that is willing to put itself on the line and run itself like a 5-person startup that has essentially unlimited resources, I'd be very afraid to short, even if things look terribly bleak. It's the type of company that can go through the worst of times and then save itself because of how Elon is prepared to pull himself up from the bootstraps, right? And just, and get on it. So I could see shorting Tesla short term, but not long term.
Well, I'd love to talk more about robots and everything you're doing.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll have another conversation in the future. Last question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Ooh, man. The most precious thing that we have is not time. It's attention. Okay. If you take a person with an unlimited amount of time who's distracted, that person is always going to lose to the person that is focused, okay, and under a deadline. So we always think time. We need time. You'd be shocked how little time you need. As long as you have focus, and the ability to orient just your attention on something, you don't need as much time as you think. So like, and it's really difficult to remove all the noise from your life. It's really difficult to maybe spend 10% of your doom scrolling on something productive that's on TikTok. But if you're willing to just start removing noise and allocate some of your time to being productive and focused and oriented towards like a noble end goal. And that, by the way, I think that's the advice I would give someone. Like, I love my life because I've been able to find an ultimate goal for myself that I feel is noble. And if you're able to find that for yourself in life, you've just won, because you know you're always, no matter whether you fail or succeed, you just know what you're working towards every day. And that's like half the game. And by the way, don't rush to do that, right? But like, so my advice to other people is relentlessly provide value to others, relentlessly help others, always do the right thing, and don't ask for anything to come back from it. And never stop trying to find that one noble mission in your life. Because when you find it, it is the greatest thing in the world. You could just chill. Settle. Like you once you could find that long-term goal, that thing that you're going to have for the rest of your life. And by the way, it could be having a family. You know, it could be raising kids the right way. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be business. But once you find it, like all the anxiety just disappears. Like all that pressure to like do this or that, like that whole concept of like your number going up and up. So many of my friends are like, they just want more. I need to make 100 million. I have some friends are like, I'm not done till I hit 1 billion. I'm like, tell me when you find your real goal, because you're going to be so much happier and less stressed out. I was fortunate to have found that, and like, I don't have the stress, and I'm just out there having fun with, trying to reach that goal.
It's funny that when you set a big, noble goal, a lot of bad habits and vices also melt away.
They do. And also one more thing. I've never said this before, but people should understand how much they could actually impact their lives in the world just as a single person. Like, I never thought I would have the influence over people that I do. And I have people DMing me every day, tell me how their life has changed. Like, think of someone like Trump. You might hate Trump or love Trump, but he's one person and has radically shifted, for better or worse, depending on your political beliefs, our country and our political system. So much now that we have a third party coming up with Elon, right? Like, that was one person. So we can do anything we want with our government, with our country, with our world, and it could all start with you, like just one person. Like, that is possible. What is actually possible starting with one person, I never believed until very recently. So like, that should give you faith and like, hopefully an enthusiastic outlook for your life to try to do something big if you want to, or maybe back someone else who's trying to do something big, because we could do anything, especially in the age of AI and robotics and everything that's about to come. There are no more barriers. There's no more walls. Like, this could end up being the worst thing that's ever been invented or the best. And it's completely up to us. So like, there's never been a more important time to like start doing stuff with your life, like start being involved and like be part of this, and then figure out what your role ultimately is. This could be the greatest thing that has ever happened to humanity or the worst, and it's up to us.
Well, everyone, this has been your guest, Chris Camillo. This is the Jack Neel Podcast. Appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks.
Yeah.